And you are watching another Blewett Blitz film review. He has that ability to, trust me, he definitely does. Just his ability to catch balls outside of his frame, his leaping ability, his ability to hang in the air, his yak ability, it's all there. Lowers his helmet, low man wins, bang, rocks the guy.
Hall running free, Brees Hall inside the 10, he's gonna score!
The corners all do their job. You know, if you look at the picture right here, lock.
3rd and 1. Stevens always drilled. What a great defensive play.
I don't try to Monday morning quarterback any of the reviews I do, and I'll try to be honest with a lot of the things I put up.
And you are watching another edition of Blitz and potentially listening, Kyle, because I did figure out how to get onto the podcast app. So if you are a person who is a little bit frustrated by only being able to listen or watch on YouTube, Blewett Splits on any of the podcast app that you are favorable to, click it in there, and you should be able to listen to the streams as well. Kyle, so today we're going to be going over our stat predictions from last year. So we're going to be making fun of our stat predictions. I already saw my Zach Wilson ones. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. So we're going to shit on ourselves a little bit about our stat predictions. We're going to talk about some of the superlatives. But we also have quite a bit of news to talk about just in the last few days. Potential, talkings of contract restructurings. We have some free agent targets out there who have cleared up in the last couple of days. One Hopkins and Cook. So we have a jam-packed 2 hours, which is not necessarily something that's typical on June 8th, but I guess we are Jets fans, so we have typically lots to talk about. But before we get into all of it, Kyle, what is up, as Lloyd says, Mr. Smith?
Doing pretty good. Just get ready for the school year to finish up. Trying to finish strong. Not too much else going on, but not as busy as you've been. Clearly clanking at those film reviews and other things. So
Yeah. So if you were not privy to all of the film reviews, I put out Aaron Rodgers Part 1, Sauce, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Chuck Clark is coming, Warren's coming. Who else is there, Kyle? Titman's out, Will McDonald's out, bunch of people are out, which we'll go over later. I'm not sure how much Kyle has watched. I know he's watched at least a good amount of them, so we'll talk a little bit about some of Kyle's thoughts about the reviews, if it changed his mind, if it hasn't changed his mind about the player. I also want to talk a little bit about Jarek Bernard-Converse, because Kyle did mention to me a couple of weeks ago that I may or may not, or that he thinks I will not like his film. Through 3 games, I'm just curious to get your thoughts on him and why I wouldn't, but we'll talk about that later. So we also have we have the playoffs going on too, which, Kyle, I don't know about you. I don't know if are you a big hockey or basketball guy at all? Like, I know you pay attention, right? But you're not the biggest into any of that stuff, right?
I don't pay attention much. When playoffs happen, I pay attention a little bit more, especially if one of the teams I kind of like is in the mix. I was definitely paying attention a lot when the Knicks were, making a playoff run. And, I kind of like the Rangers too. I would say probably 2014, 15-ish years when the Rangers were pretty good and made deep playoff runs. I was definitely watching a good amount of the playoff games, but that's kind of about it for me. And, So, I'm definitely rooting against the Heat. I don't like the Miami Heat. So
so I actually like Jimmy Butler, but knowing that a lot of Dolphins fans are Heat fans and knowing a lot of Dolphins fans are Panthers fans, I'm very heavily rooting against both Florida teams because I don't want Dolphins fans to be happy, So definitely rooting for Vegas and for the Nuggets. I believe I think Game 3 of the NHL is tonight. I could be wrong, but I believe it is. So let's say hello to some people in the chat before we'll get into some of the topics surrounding the Jets, and then later on in the show we'll go through some of the stat predictions. But first, let's say hello to some people who are in the chat very, very early. Dakota about 6 hours ago with the Green Heart and the Jet. Appreciate Dakota with the consistent support. I doubt we get Cook since he can get a starting gig with the Bills or Dolphins. Eagles always want to kind of just throw it out there, and let's get right into the topic. Screw it, Kyle. As I call you, Tile. Again, 3 hours of sleep. I just told Kyle before I got 3 hours of sleep right now, so I'm going to mix up some words. Dalvin Cook released. There's a whole rumors that we might be trading for him. I think we're BetMGM's favorites for Dalvin Cook right now. Some other websites were 2,
Really?
some other websites were 3. What is Mr. Kyle Smith's thoughts about adding one Dalvin Cook?
I always kind of liked him as a player whenever I saw him play. He obviously had a great college career, and then he hit the ground running as an NFL player. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he slid to the second round. He didn't have a great combine. I think his 40-yard dash time is a little on the slower end, if I remember correctly. But, I mean, he's just a good player. You know, he has good vision, has a good feel for the game. But, again, I don't say he's an old running back, but in terms of running backs, he's a little bit on the older end, right? Like, you know, and just in terms of, you know, injuries and just the amount of carries that he's had in the NFL. So
he's a lot of miles tires. He's a lot of miles.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say I'm not opposed to necessarily adding him, but like, what's the price and stuff? I mean, the Jets are definitely in win now mode. So
for sure,
you know, you want to do everything you can to, you know, you don't want to be like the Eagles last year. You know, the Eagles, greatest season as they had and as close as they were, at the end of the day, they didn't get a ring. So it's all about, you know, it's not just about being good or being great. You want to hoist that Lombardi trophy at the end of the year. And, you know, I don't know if 27, 28-ish year old running back is going to be that extra piece that helps you do that, but certainly it might. I don't know. So I'm not necessarily in theory opposed to it. He is a good player. Like, there was rumors month plus ago about Ezekiel Elliott coming to the Jets. And I much prefer Dalvin Cook to someone like Zeke based off of what I saw.
All depend on the price. Like, what's the general feel for the price? And I'm going to read some stats, by the way, as well, which it's obviously stats aren't everything, but I'm going to put some stats out there from one of our own, Rivka. But what's the general feel about what you'd, and at least initially before really delving into the film, like about a price you feel comfortable with Dalvin Cook?
So like a cap number for 1 year?
Ish. Yeah. You know, I don't want to lock you down to it, but a general
I don't
feel
think
for
I'd
what
really
you'd
want to pay him like over, I don't know. I almost want to say 5, but that seems like you're shortchanging him. But I couldn't go over 6.
I was going to say 4 or 5. Yeah, I was going to say 4 or 5.
I don't know, maybe 6 tops, but only because I'm thinking like, okay, you might be able to, like, you obviously you don't even consider him if you're in full rebuild. But this Aaron Rodgers window is so limited. So, you know, if you have to get a guy who's been a great player, he's been like a top 5-ish back, you know, over his time in the NFL. So
was. Now the secondary question with this, before I read some stats, the thing is with it is like, oh yeah, bring him on. With that being said, and like, obviously there's a short window, let's say a 2 or 3 year window with Aaron Rodgers. I still feel like it's going to be 2, but I'm hoping for 3. But with that being said, if you do bring on Cook, you're not keeping 5 running backs. So if you had to get rid of somebody, obviously you're not getting rid of Brees, you're not getting rid of Izzy. So you're bringing in Cook, who should get shown the door. Is it Michael Carter? Or is it Donovan Knight? That's something that people don't factor in. I'll just get them. Yeah, but we also have to get rid of somebody as well.
Well, I guess training camp and preseason will really be the determinant of that. And quite honestly, like, you know, I want to say Carter, you know, obviously he was the higher draft pick. The one guy wasn't even drafted, Zonovan Knight, but at times Zonovan Knight outplayed him. Granted, it was a very short span, but if we're talking about who's looked better overall in the Jets uniform, it has been Michael Carter. You know, he had a pretty damn good rookie season. So, but, you know, hey, listen, when you build a good roster, if you have to let go of a pretty good player, that's not necessarily such a bad thing. That's a sign that you do have a pretty good roster. So,
yeah. So let me quote some numbers here from Rivka's article. Cook ran for 1,184 yards, six most amongst running backs, and 8 touchdowns, tied for 11th. However, here are some of the underlying metrics and ranks among 43 backs with at least 100 attempts. So among 43 backs with at least 100 attempts, his expected or his EPA per rush was negative 0.4, which is tied for 39th out of 43 in terms of just your expected average per that rush. Rush yards over expectations per rush were negative 0.75, which is 41st out of 43. His DVOA, I don't know exactly what that is, but he's tied for 34th or 35th out of 43. His DYAR.
DVOA, try to explain this in a way that someone else could understand, because I'm not even the best at explaining it or understanding it myself, but it's basically let's say that you rush for 5 yards, but you do it on a 3rd and 10. okay, well, you didn't get a first down. Obviously, defenses are going to play soft on a 3rd and 10. It's much easier to rush for 5 yards than it is on a 4th and 1. So DVA factors in down and distance with yards per carry. So sometimes, like if a guy has, 40 carries on the season, but he has a really high yards per carry, it's like, okay, but what situation did he get all those yards?
Draw
like
3rd and 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have DY. Yeah, we have the DYAR, which is 36 out of 43. The rush success rate is 48%, which is tied for 30th out of 43. Yards after contact per attempt was 12th, which is still okay. That's solid. Elusiveness was 16th out of 43. Yards per route run was 25th out of 43. The drop rate was 34th out of 43 in terms of just dropping the ball. And then Pro Football Focus pass blocking grade was 25th out of 43. So it seems like, and it's not only the stats, but even watching him last year, I thought he was starting to lose a step, and it seemed like he just took what was blocked for him. So I think at this point you're paying more for the name than the actual product on the field. Yeah, and to me, like it's not that I'm opposed to bringing him on. Like, yeah, if you're telling me, hey, in a vacuum, Dalvin Cook versus Donovan Knight or Michael Carter, bring me Dalvin Cook. But with that being said, Kyle, I would rather take that $5 or $6 million and invest it into safety, invest it into a linebacker, invest it into potentially a backup quarterback. So I'm not saying it would be a bad move, but I'd rather go 3 or 4 other avenues with our cap. For Dalvin Cook's price, let's just say it's $5 million. You could probably bring Quan and John Johnson in, or Adrian Amos for that price. And I'd much rather have those 2 guys than just Dalvin Cook. So I get the idea of it, but I'm not really head over heels in love with it. I would be okay if it happened, but depending on the price and depending on the other moves, if this is the thing that they think is going to put them over the top, I don't think it necessarily does. I much rather go after, like if we're talking about big fish, Kevin Byard, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans. I'm still waiting for one of those moves. I don't think Dalvin Cook moves the needle as much as some people think he does at this point in his career. With 28 years old, with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of carries on his tires there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So supposedly there's some rumors about DeAndre Hopkins and how, he's, when things aren't going so well, he's not necessarily the guy that you want, the leader that you want. And apparently he doesn't love practicing, but there's also this rumor too that, a lot of people think that he's not the player that he once was. But if we're talking about getting a guy who's on the back end of his career and, is a little washed up, I'd much rather go with the receiver, for sure, who is as dominant as he was than an old school, not old school, but an older running back. So I'm there with you with that. And
and with Hopkins too, like the thing is, like, and no, he's not Hopkins of Houston Texans, but he could still be a very, very, probably an elite number 2 in the league. And the thing with him is we don't necessarily know the price. And it's funny that he's going to visit the Titans when he said he wanted a really good quarterback, a really good defense, and you're going to visit the Titans. Yeah, they have all of that. But for his price, let's just assume it's around the Odell Beckham price. It's $14-15 million. You get rid of Davis for 10. You get rid of Ashton Davis for 2-ish. Mims and Mims is about $1 million or $2 million. Bryce Hall is probably not going to be here. He's $1 million or $2 million. So for the price of Corey Davis and Ashton Davis and a couple of other bottom of the roster guys who aren't going to make it, you could bring in DeAndre Hopkins. And I get the locker room stuff or whatever, but I think that's a piece that can legitimately push you over the top. Where right now, like, and obviously everything's very much elevated by Rodgers, right? But with that being said, the receiving core is solid. It's not great. The running back room right now is solid, but it's not great. You still have questions with Breece Hall and then some of the depth behind him. I like what we have, but there's a bunch of question marks there. The tight ends are solid, but not great. The offensive line is okay to solid, but not great. So you have a bunch of decent and solid pieces around Rodgers, but I don't think we have any elite position groups around him, minus the defense. Obviously, the defense is going to be top 5 in my opinion. But you add a Hopkins to that offense, and that puts that receiver core into it elevates it from solid to one of the better ones in the league, right? And it's not only the top. Like you can argue, T. Higgins and Chase, or you could argue whoever you want to over the actual 1-2 punch than the Jets would have. But if you're talking about Garrett Wilson, Hopkins, Lazard, Hardman, and Cobb as a 5, that's one of the better receiving groups in the league. That's probably a top 5 group right there. So I would like to do
very deep,
even more. And I'm not saying it's not deep now.
I feel like whatever position, like if someone's out, someone's got a sore hammy or something any given week, and another guy's got to step in. You feel very confident. One guy has been running a lot of routes in a game. He's a little tired. You got to, switch up a little bit. You feel like any personnel package you go in, you're putting 5 guys on the field who you feel very confident with. Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement there. In terms of the whole Cook thing, if we try to think of, is there a similar example of when the Jets were Super Bowl,
Ladainian Tomlinson?
Yeah. And
I love that, man. Is that, by the way, is he your favorite running back? He's my favorite running back of all time. I don't know who yours is. I'm just curious, but he's my number one.
Favorite running back of all time. I liked him a lot. I had his jersey back when I was in middle school.
Nice.
I don't know if I have a favorite of all time.
Interesting. We should do that. Maybe one show.
Being a Texas Longhorns fan,
yeah,
I liked Ricky Williams a lot.
There you go.
And but then his best years were with the Dolphins. And then as I grew to be an even bigger football fan, I started to hate the Dolphins more. So it's like I could like Ricky Williams, but damn, he's a Dolphin. So it's hard for me to say he's number one. I don't know. I did like Priest Holmes a lot back in the day too. Granted, he was a UDFA guy, another Longhorn, but he had, man, that offensive line that he had in Kansas City was a bunch of studs.
Yeah, maybe one episode we have to build our all-time favorite teams. That could be
cool.
That could be a fun
season topic.
Yeah.
So, but LT, thing is when you see a running back who their stats are declining, their numbers are declining, team releases them. They're right about releasing him. Like, he's on the backside of his career. There's no doubt about it. So it's just, how much juice does he have left in the tank? And is it the smartest way for the Jets to use the remaining resources?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Not when you have Tony Adams at starting free safety, not when you have a third linebacker, not when you have a bunch of stuff there. But for Hopkins, and again, I want to go back and really, really watch these guys, but based on what I've seen and what I know of these guys, it's like, if Hopkins was to join the Chiefs or the Bills or the Chargers or whoever, it's going to be like, oh shit, like we have that much more competition. Where, I don't want Cook to go to, and this might bite me in the ass. I don't want Cook to go to the Bills. I don't want Cook to go to the Dolphins, but I'm not going to be like shaking in my boots. Like, oh my God, Cook went. Like, I think he's going to get what the offense blocks for him, but I don't think he's like overly dynamic and be a guy who really creates for himself anymore. It's just, and again, it's not saying I don't want him, but I'd rather have Quan and John Johnson over him. If you're just talking about the price for him, I'd rather have those two guys, maybe a backup quarterback. Like there's a bunch of things I'd rather have. So I'm very lukewarm on it, and it depends obviously on the price. We get him for $3-4 million. Okay, cool. Awesome. But if we're talking about $7-8 million, whatever it might be, that's just too much. People get obsessed with names. You know what that is, Kyle. But with that being said, it kind of ties into this topic. We heard some rumors that Quan is waiting out for a little bit more money, and the Jets aren't really going to be interested past anything like way above the veteran minimum. So it seems like the Jets may have interest, like veteran minimum, similar contract to last year as Quan, but Quan's rapping now, and there's like rap songs about the Jets, and he's posting pictures in green cleats with a Joe Namath shirt on with Jet lyrics in the song he's playing for his things. Like, do you think it's going to happen with Quan? Because and he bodied somebody on Twitter the other day. I don't know if you saw that, but he quoted
what he said.
He was basically just like somebody quote tweeted him and said like, or responded to something like saying he's slow or he can't cover or whatever. And he just called him like basically like a fuck boy, and you have no neck and you're ugly. Shit like that. It's kind of funny. But nonetheless, what are your thoughts on Quan? And then kind of tied into that, Kyle, because not only Quan, because Quan's going to cost $1 million, $2 million, maybe $3 million, whatever that may be. But there's also been some rumblings where Rick Shamini recently said that it seems like Corey Davis is going to take a pay cut. Oh. So you hear that. So tied into this, you have Jordan Whitehead, who he restructured the contract, but he also took like $2 million off. There were some void years added and all that, but he was owed like $11 million. And now he's getting paid like $8 million of that $10 million. So he actually took like a $2 million hit. You have Corey Davis, who now is apparently going to be taking a pay cut soon. And then Mosley was interviewed. I don't know if you watched the interview, but people asked him about a potential pay cut. And he said, yeah, like we've been, my agent's been in contact with him. And he didn't really give details about it, but he did mention the Jets are talking to his agent about a pay cut. So Carl Lawson pay cut, Jordan Whitehead pay cut, Corey Davis potential pay cut, Mosley pay cut. The Jets are at about $24 million in room right now. If you make more room with Davis and Mosley, what are we spending the money on, Kyle? And I know people are talking about Quinn Williams. Quinn Williams doesn't really affect this year. Now they could if they wanted to, but it's not going to affect this year much. And I know that Aaron Rodgers is going to have some hit this year, but we're going to be talking about, 26, 27, $28 million. Does it seem to you that it's like, are the Jets going to make another move? Because that's what it seems like to me. I don't know what's coming, but I think the Jets realize that they're in a position, obviously, to go for it all this year and next year. And this roster, while very, very good, is not maybe the level of the Eagles or not the level of the Chiefs. But I feel like with one of, and I'm not just saying one specific guy, but one of Hopkins or Bayard, I think that pushes us up to that elite category with the Bengals, with the Chiefs, with the Eagles type of teams in the league.
I think top to bottom, like the Chiefs roster is good. Don't get me wrong. It's just, it's coaching. One of the best coaches, without a doubt. And then they have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce's. They have like a couple real high quality studs. Jones, you and I have argued about Jones over the years, but he's also a really, really high quality player too. And man, did they get lucky with the offensive line? They just had a couple stud draft picks with Humphrey and getting Trey Smith all the way into 6th, and then him developing the way that he did. But I mean, it's hard to say, the Chiefs have like a much better roster or even like a decently better roster than the Jets. Like I think the Jets could kind of hang with them top to bottom, but they just have a lot of top heavy studs and well coached, obviously.
But we have a better roster, but we don't have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, so we need more pieces to be able to compete with them. You feel what I'm saying there? Like I feel like we're a step below them, but with a Bayard or with a Hopkins, we are right there.
Yeah, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. I don't think Bayard's going to be the move. I just don't see the Jets wanting to put those kinds of resources into a safety. As much as it would, kind of really fill up a weakness. It's not like you're just putting that whatever that those craps, those TV commercials or whatever, like you get a dent in your car or a scratch on your car and you just put that crap on there and the scratch goes away. Well, it doesn't really go away. It's not like, going to an actual like shop and getting it done or whatever. So if you get Bayard, like he takes like a weakness and really kind of makes it a strength. But I think like the Jets really kind of just really want to stick with their philosophy and be really top heavy in the positions that they think, really matter. And obviously, defensive end is one such position, edge rusher. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that move is going to be, but it seems pretty likely that there will be a move.
Now, do you think it's coming soon, Kyle? Because they released fan favorite Hall of Fame player, Will Parks. And
everyone stays doubting him, man.
I don't want to talk too much shit, but the guy does talk like he's done anything in his career. Like he's friendly, all that stuff, but he tweets like he's some stud of a player. And he consistently gets cut. Like he's not very good. And he came in last year and he kind of sucked. Like I don't get the love for Philly Will. I'm sorry, but like I get the personality maybe, but he's also a little bit cocky for my liking in terms of what he actually does in the field. So he's gone. But with that being said, Kyle, usually when somebody gets released, there's a corresponding roster move. So is it coming?
If I can comment on Philly Will for a moment. So it makes you wonder, why would a player who's clearly subpar, has to on some level know that he's subpar, talk at the rate and level that he does? And it kind of reminds me of a good buddy of mine. I won't say his name on air, who, when we were playing in a flag football league, which was full contact at the line of scrimmage, this is like post like actual playing days for me, but the league was good. It was competitive. It was fun. And my buddy, he used to talk a lot of shit, and this is a flag league, and like the refs wanted like the games to be appropriate, not like you can go like over the line with like shit talking. Like if you said like certain like really bad curse words or something, like you could get a flag. But my friend, who used to get abused sometimes as a player, he would talk a lot of shit. I'm like, why are you talking shit, man? Like you got us a flag. You're not that good. It just makes you look bad when you talk that much shit. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? I do it because it brings my own like self-esteem up. Like, I gotta have confidence in myself. So like me talking shit makes me feel like I'm better. And then I feel like I play better. I'm like, I don't know. I don't quite get that. But I feel like there might be something similar with Philly Will. And we kind of talked about how, Jamal Adams might have that. Well, he was definitely kind of a little bit of a, like a fake persona. It didn't always seem genuine.
No way.
But I don't know. With Philly Will, there might be something similar there too. I don't know. We're trying to play psychologist right now, or I am trying to, not you. Anyway, but the cool thing about what you were just talking about with all the pay cuts is this obviously doesn't happen without future Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. This is a position that the Jets have not been in, and so it's kind of cool to see it. The Aaron Rodgers effect. So players taking pay cuts because they know that if they get cut, and I know Mosley's not going to get cut, but if they get cut, they're not going to get that same type of salary on an open market at this later stage of their career. But also, they do want to get a ring too. So I think that's also part of it. So it's just pretty cool to be in that position as a fan for once.
Yeah. So a few more topics just before we get to the rest of the chat and then get into the revisitation of our terrible predictions from last year. Kyle, did you hear the Salah comments on Dwayne Brown in recent weeks saying basically he's going to be difficult to like push out of that left tackle spot? I don't know exactly what the quotations were, but he insinuated pretty heavily that Brown is going to be the left tackle. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did see that. So I was laughing about one of the comments that I saw. But yes, I did see that. And it just further kind of reinforces what we've been saying. Dwayne Brown, barring injury, is going to be the left tackle. I don't care. I saw Mekhi Becton. Somebody was not Mekhi Becton saying this, but I did see some fans. I don't remember the account and I won't put them out on here anyway, but they were saying something like, oh, well, look at the stance he's in. He's in the left tackle stance. I mean, like, just because he's practicing in a left tackle stance and you just take a picture of him practicing a left tackle, well, he's obviously going to prepare for that scenario. I mean, like, what if Dwayne Brown gets hurt? You could see Mekhi Becton at left tackle. So, they're going to take different stances from time to time during practice.
What is the percentage chance you put on it right now that Dwayne Brown's not the left tackle going into the year?
Not, I would say maybe 10% that he's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's maybe even less than 10%. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna be the left tackle, and then you're gonna have Becton's gonna suck it up and be the right tackle, and we'll see what happens after that. So let's see the chat a little bit. Trey asks, "Are you guys concerned about the wide receiver depth?" Listen, like anybody, and I've heard that a lot. It's well, if he goes down, they're screwed.
What if Justin Jefferson goes down? I mean,
if Justin Jefferson goes down, you're screwed. If Jamar Chase goes down, you're screwed. If any number one receiver goes down, you're screwed. Now, with that being said, I still do feel like the Jets lack a real number two. I think Corey Davis could be a lower tier number two in the league, but we have to assume that he's not going to be healthy, Kyle. So if he was healthy for 17 games, okay, I'm okay with it. I think it's an okay number two. But you can't assume health. So yeah,
if you had to take a bet, Joe, over under Corey Davis misses 4 games this year.
Yeah, I would say over that, and he might push past some injuries because he has Aaron Rodgers and stuff. But still, so if he's down and it's Davis, Lazard, Hardman, and Cobb, it's not terrible. It's not the days of Chad Hansen being our number one receiver, but it's still not great, obviously.
Was Chad ever the number one in any game?
I don't know. Andre Roberts, David Nelson. We've had some really shitty number one some games. So what's up to Verge, who's been watching some of the film?
Remember Darius Stewart?
Barry Stewart.
Third round.
What is the deal with Becton? What's funny? So I was looking through the Jets drafts a couple of weeks ago. I was just bored one day, and I went back and I was like, Darius Stewart. I actually went and watched his highlight film from college. I'm like, he even looks like he sucks on a highlight tape. I'm like, how did he get drafted in the third round? All this stuff, he's just wide open, balls that are wide. He's wide open and just running in for like easy touchdowns. I'm like, what is this? So nonetheless, we got the slowest safeties in the league. They did Marcus May dirty. I think Marcus May kind of did himself dirty, lying about a DWI and pointing a gun at a bunch of minors in a car. So I don't really feel bad for Marcus May, but. We got some pretty slow safeties. Tony Adams isn't slow, that's for sure, but nonetheless, fellas got to watch this one back, but eager to hear 2020 stat. Yeah, not ideal. How are we in win now mode with Cody Adams at free safety? That's something I agree with Charles here is it's not that I don't have faith that Tony Adams could be a good player, but I'm not going to guarantee that he's going to be a good player, and I would like guarantee he's going to a Super Bowl year, but we'll see. It's June. It's June. What's up, Swolzy? What's up, Anthony G? Get the fuck up. Good point on allocating resources, considering his worth. Appreciate that. Please another, vet body safety is what I really, really want. Because right now, especially with Whitehead seemingly being, or he's going to be here, right? So at this point, I have a feeling they're not going to sign Quan, and it's going to be that rotation of Whitehead and Clark in the box, and the other one's at strong safety. Now maybe Quan would come back for like heavier sets, but I feel like they're going to incorporate a lot of Clark at linebacker, and I've been saying that since freaking January or February or March, whenever I started watching him, because Whitehead's going to be here. So I think that's kind of the situation at linebacker, and I'm okay with that being the situation at linebacker. If they are going to leave it to Clark or Whitehead, all right, is what it is. I'm not thrilled with it necessarily, but I can live with it. But at the minimum, Kyle, I still want them to add a veteran body at safety, right? Are you okay with the linebacker situation if that's what they're trying to do, and it's just a safety that they bring in, a John Johnson or whoever it may be, and that kind of finishes up the defense? Because, you're going later. You might struggle in the run game a little bit more, but with that being said, obviously the Jets are going to be planning on being in some games where they're up, and they're going to be facing lighter boxes. They're not going to have to necessarily stack the box against the run.
Yeah, I think that might be the approach that they plan on going in for that reason. If a team's down by 14 points in the second half, they're not going to be running as much. So it's a different position for the Jets to be in. So I could see that happening for sure. And I think I guess I'd be comfortable with it.
Good evening to Hawk, Anthony G. If we can get Evans, assuming what it would take to trade from or Hopkins, which would you go for? I would take Evans over Hopkins all day. Just the fact he likes to block too. Kyle, we've seen that quite a bit with him and Marshawn Lattimore over the years. He fits it a little better. I think
he's been healthier too.
He's been healthier. Career. He's been healthier. There's no PEDs. He seems, and I don't want to speak about this, but he seems like he's like a team guy where you've seen some rumblings about Hopkins where people aren't necessarily in love with what he provides a team in terms of.
Let's also not forget about Hopkins. So. It's like we didn't hear a lot of this crap for so many years because he was so good in the league for so many years. But there was the whole thing. He dormed with some receiver from Rutgers, don't remember his name, at the combine. And apparently the room that they were in afterwards was all trashed and, I guess destroyed to a certain degree or whatever. And it's like, well, maybe Hopkins didn't do that, but I mean, he was in the room. So I don't know. Is that also like a bad mark on his character? I don't know if any of this crap's true or whatever, but if you're telling me in an ideal world, if I can get two studs, would I want the one who's, maybe doesn't have the potential character flaws? I guess I would take that one.
And it's seemingly proven that Hopkins is not he's not the most willing blocker, where Evans definitely is. So what's up to
Evans?
Jets?
He's had 1,000 yards every season of his career, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's 8 years now. It's either 7 or 8 years of that. So gearing up to make a move. Devontae, can you imagine? Are we ever satisfied? I think that's the become the dragon thing that Rodgers. I don't know if that's the dragon thing, but it's not. So like I've heard that too. Like people say, oh, why can't we just be happy with what we have? It's not that we're not happy with what we have. Even if we went 10-7 this year, obviously, minus expectations, that's better than we've ever done, and we'd be happy for the time being. But that's not the goal this year. The goal this year is not to be okay, good, just get to the playoffs. The goal this year is a fucking Super Bowl. So we have to be critical of the team we're comparing it to a Super Bowl level roster, right? So we're going to point out the flaws. It's not just, oh, well, we have good positions, other spots. Let's just be happy with the whole free safety. No, fuck that. Let's win the Super Bowl, right? That's the goal this year. Why go half in? So I've heard some of that on Twitter. I've seen some of that. People be like, oh, just be happy. Fuck that, right? That's my mindset. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
I don't think you're crazy for that.
I'm the real Kyle. Is that what you're laughing at?
Yes, that is
exactly. Joe and Kyle. What do you what do you guys have? Do you guys have tips for someone who's never watched film but wants to start?
You should answer that question, Joe.
Jesus Christ, man! Where do you start? I can send you some books. You can email me. I can send you some books that are really good starter books. I would take notes on them, reread those notes. I would go to coaching clinics. I would look up coaching clinics on YouTube. I would write notes about them. I would go over those notes. I would try to find things that you see in coaching clinics and actual games. It's a lot of note taking and repetition. It's a grind, man. It's literally the more you know, the less you feel like you know. It's crazy. Every single thing I get into, I'm like, shit. Now there's a whole nother freaking dimension of shit I got to get into that I had no idea about. So it's a grind. It's a grind. I have a page of hundreds of pages of notes of shit. But Bieniemy, the greatest placeholder, card holder,
clipboard holder.
Clipboard holder? I don't know. I think Dowell Loggins would like to have a word with you, Swolesy. I also wouldn't assume Beckman wins right tackle yet. I would assume Beckman wins right tackle, right? Like he's obviously really slim. He's really motivated. He wants a contract, and if he's healthy, I would bet quite a bit of money that he wins over Max Mitchell, Billy Turner, and Carter Warren.
And the Jets staff want him to win too, just because they want to kind of see what they have.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't want to re-sign him, if he has a great year, at the very least you tag him. Tag and trades don't happen very often, but they have happened. You always want to be in the negotiating spot. So like if you could tag him and trade him for a second round pick the following year, maybe you do that. So, but you're not going to get that with like a Max Mitchell or something.
Thoughts on skipping mandatory minicamp? That was it's like the 3-day thing, right, Kyle? That was supposed to be this or next week, and they basically said like, "Hey, we have a preseason game coming up, or even extra preseason game than everyone else. We'll give them a week off. It's fine. Who cares? I'm okay with it. I'm not going to lose my shit. Now, I'm going to mix the content, because we're starving for content and things like that. But is what it is. John Hasselblad is making the roster. That's my hot take for tonight. John's been listening, I think, but that's something I've been talking about, Kyle. And by the way, we have a couple of fun shows coming up today. We have revisiting the stats. Next time Kyle's on, we're going to do our stat predictions for 2023. The week after that, or 2 weeks after that, I believe we're doing our top 25, and then we're going to do camp battles. So top 25 is coming, Kyle. I made my list for the first time last night. I was working at midnight.
You always start that really early.
I know. And then I think
you rework it a gazillion times.
1,000 times. But it's a fun list. It's a fun list this year. So let's keep going on. Bridgewater's a bigger need than any free agent. If Zach Wilson has to really, no, I'm with you, Kev. If they were to make one more move this offseason, and let's assume it's just a free agent, and obviously you want Hopkins, right? Like let's eliminate Hopkins from that scenario. If it was like a John Johnson, a Quan, or a Bridgewater, Kyle, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would Bridgewater be the guy you'd bring in just for that security blanket behind Rodgers?
We talked about this a month plus ago, and we were looking at that list and was like, I even considered Matt Ryan over Bridgewater just because of health, because Matt Ryan has been by and large very healthy throughout his whole career. I only think he's missed a couple games throughout his whole career, but Bridgewater, man, he just comes in, he gets banged up all the time. So I don't know. I don't want to have a backup who's also going to come in and get banged up, because let's say you have a backup who comes in and gets banged up, and then, did they rework the rule?
Really fucked.
Yeah, I mean, because then what are you putting Bilal Powell? Remember Bilal Powell had to play some quarterback for
they have the third emergency quarterback thing.
Yeah, so they just changed that rule, I guess, right?
Yeah. So you have to carry that quarterback on your 53, but it doesn't count against your game day 47 or 48, whatever it is.
Okay.
So yeah, but with that, okay, so you don't want Bridgewater because he's injured all the time.
I do like
Matt
Bridgewater
Ryan?
as a player.
Is it Nick Foles?
Well, Matt Ryan, it's not going to be him because he just got hired by I forget which
CBS or some shit.
Yeah. I guess you after what we saw from Flacco last year, you don't want him back. Not as your number 2, and he's not going to be a number 3 anywhere. He doesn't want to do that. I don't know who it is. I mean, like
Bridgewater. It's Bridgewater.
I guess it is.
It's Bridgewater. So I would probably say safety over Bridgewater. I would say if I had the choice between those 3 spots, it's safety, quarterback, linebacker in that order. And that's assuming it's not Hopkins or anything like that. Amos or Johnson over me. Yeah. So Swolesey's on the same page with me. Zach went 5-3. No. Okay. So Kyle,
I think so Hawk might've been responding to the person Kev Chada, who said it's going to be an automatic loss. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like Zach Wilson did get wins last year, but they weren't because of him. Yeah. I mean, you could maybe argue the Steelers. No. He showed some poise in the second half, but he also had
like 120 yards against the Dolphins, and 60 of those were yacked by Brees, like on like a wheel route. Like it's not, he didn't win us those games. He tried to lose us those games. The only game that he won us was the Steelers in the fourth quarter. That's also because he played like garbage the first 3 quarters.
It's so funny how like your fandom can and we're both rooting like hell for the guy in his second year. Like I remember watching your film review following Dolphins game, and you're like, hey, listen, it was a solid game by Zach Wilson. Like he didn't do much, but like some of the passes are on the money and stuff. And it's like, dude, just for a guy who managed a game, we were looking at that as a big win, but that's just like our bias as a Jets fan, like wanting to see something that we weren't really seeing.
Yeah. So gun to your head, Nets ring or Jets ring. I would take 1 Jets ring for 25 Nets rings. The Nets can win for the next 25 years. I still wouldn't care as much as 1 Jets Super Bowl. Nothing comes even remotely close to the Nets or to the Jets. There's just absolutely no way. You could guarantee me that if you could guarantee me one Super Bowl for the Jets for the rest of my life, I would take all those teams guaranteeing that they never even get close to a championship. It's just football is so far and away my favorite sport. So there's just no way. We have a Jessica talking about I don't know the Colts and Jets. I don't know what's good. Blewitts. What's good? Ray. So or Knicks over Nets. So Kyle, I want to get into this before we get back into the chat, and then we go over some of the stats. This is something that we do that I feel like that differentiates at least a little bit because we do a lot of film. And again, for the people who are subscribed, I've been putting out, I don't know, at this point for the last 2 weeks, like 5 or 6 a week. I still have 20 to go, so you're gonna get at least another 20 reviews by August. So you've watched some. What have you watched, and is there anything you want to discuss about some of the film that you've watched? Because so for the people who are not aware, McDonald's out, Rodgers Part 1 is out, Wilson Part 1 is out, Sauce Part 1 is out, Tippmann, Lazard, and then Kyle also has access to Carter, Warren, and Clark, which haven't been published yet. But let's do some updated film thoughts a little bit, Kyle.
So I watched your Garrett Wilson Part 1, Will McDonald, Aaron Rodgers Part 1, and I watched part of Tippmann so far. And I plan on getting to more of those, but I just didn't get to them yet. But I will watch the rest of them before we speak next. Some updated thoughts. I don't think I really have any updated thoughts on Rodgers. I mean, it's kind of what I saw. It's like a guy who still, is ridiculous. I'll say this. The review starts off, you see a little bit, he has a game against the Saints. It's a little bit of a rough game. And, something that you kind of harped on a lot in the review is like, hey, listen, if you're looking for like teach tape mechanics, Rodgers isn't the guy. Like you watch his tape. Go ahead.
Dude, I heard that. Like, sorry, but it was like Twitter, like, oh, Rodgers could really teach him mechanics. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Rodgers does not have good mechanics. It's like saying Philip Rivers has a really good release or Sean Marion shoots a really good 3-point shot. Like, you could still be really good with bad mechanics, but Rodgers is not the guy you want to teach your young quarterback mechanics. That's 100% a false thing that people put out on Twitter when they saw him throwing Zach Wilson. Like, oh, his mechanics already improved. He must be learning from Rodgers. It's like, are you sure?
Yeah. You could even argue that part of the reason maybe Zach Wilson's mechanics and his inaccuracy issues have sucked over the past 2 years is he's trying to do too much of Rodgers, and maybe it works a lot for one guy and doesn't work so much for another guy. So, sure. I know that's something you did a pretty good job pointing some of that stuff out, and I obviously noticed that stuff myself. In terms of the McDonald, I think you had access to a couple games that I didn't watch or just didn't have access to. And there's just a couple plays, man, where, just the angles where he's able to bend himself out are just, pretty freakish. So that's pretty fun to watch. So I encourage you guys to go and watch that review. And you're just the way that he contorts his body, like you start to think as a Jets fan, like, okay, the Jets, like pretty much everyone, when they watch that pick, they're like, oh, the Jets are kind of reaching here. He was more of a late one, second round type guy. It's like, well, and you mentioned this in the review, he's only played football for X amount of years, 4 years, something like that. How many years has it been, Joe? How many years has he been playing football?
Well, I think he started playing his junior year. So I think it's 5 total years. Five
total years. The Jets, can we call him a diamond in the rough? But they might have found a diamond in the rough, and he just has stuff you can't teach. Simple as that. This is a player that we might really, really, really like. And you're gonna pull up a play?
Just general while you're speaking.
Yeah.
But,
so that was something that stood out there. Let's see. Garrett Wilson. Yeah, the film's really good.
He's man. You haven't watched the Sauce one yet, but I don't want to speak too out of turn. Like I think Sauce is still the better corner than Garrett is a receiver, but I don't know. Like it's a lot closer than people think it is, because obviously Sauce has the benefit of not having to rely on a quarterback, to throw him the ball. But there were some plays on Sauce's review, which you'll see, Kyle, and I talked about, like he got beat by Deontay Johnson deep, that he caught the ball, he didn't get a foot in. He got beat. Yeah. He got beat on by Lazard on that crossing route where he got the PD, but it was because the ball was late and the ball was behind. But he got beat there. Like Garrett Wilson, in terms of their respective positions, was almost just as good as Sauce was at corner. Like Garrett Wilson was really, really freaking good. Like you saw that Ravens game. How many throws did I show where like he could have had a touchdown or a big gain or whatever it was, and he was just missed. Like even in his very, very first game.
Let's also be fair here, though. When we say this, it's easier to play receiver than it is to play corner. So we also have to factor that in when we talk about this. But yeah, no, I agree. And you watch that review, and it's like Zach Wilson's going to catch a couple strays, and there's a lot of examples of when Garrett Wilson's open, beats a guy, but for whatever reason he's not the first in the progression, or the quarterback couldn't get the ball to him, whatever reason. But he gets open a ton, and it's kind of when we talk about with Rodgers about how he has freakish stuff, but you wouldn't really want to learn tape from watching him. It's not like, oh, let me replicate his game, because you're almost assuredly not going to be able to do it. And it's similar with Garrett Wilson. Like, there's some plays, you pointed this out in his college film a lot, and we still saw it in the NFL, where like when he gets into breaks, sometimes like he's extending his legs so far apart, he's almost like doing a split in midair. And it's like, it definitely throws D-backs off, like, because he's so like he throws his whole body into the route, which is good. Like, you sell the route really well, but at the same time, it's going to make it a little bit harder to get out of the breaks. But it still does work for him. But you almost figure, like, if he could find a way to do a little bit less of the full extensions and be a little bit more crisp with how he plants his feet, but still kind of sell with bending his shoulders a lot and stuff, and the head fakes, man, so there's a lot of potential to still grow there as a receiver.
If he just cleans that up like 10%, like he could be an elite route runner. Like his releases are good. Like that was a really fun watch for sure.
Yeah. And there's one thing that you pointed out too, and we obviously noticed this last year, in terms of catching the football, he can also improve a little bit in that area too. Sometimes it's not fully clean. For sure. Anyway, so yeah, no, they were all fun watches. Tippmann, I started that one. And I probably only watched 10, 15 minutes of it so far. But I definitely noticed one of the things you pointed out, like sometimes when he does back blocks, he goes way too flat and allows the guy to get over the top of him.
Yeah, he said testicular angles in the first level. Yeah.
But you also pointed out that he plays whistle to whistle, which you'd love to see that from an offensive lineman. I love those big, nasty guys who, and you pointed out one play. I can't remember what game. Was it Northwestern? Can't totally remember. Running back ran for like 97, 98 yards for a touchdown. And Tippmann, as the running back's starting to, break to the second level, Tippmann, just keeps fighting and eventually pancakes a guy. So that's cool to see. You want linemen like that. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And then I put out Lazard as well, which Kyle kind of knows what Lazard is. It is what it is. The one I did, I would say so far out of the draft picks, my least favorite pick for where they were taken is Carter Warren. He's just not my type of offensive lineman. I think his pro readiness and pass protection is pretty overrated at this point. So I don't love him. He severely lacks aggression, which I also don't like. And his run blocking is not even close to pro ready. If he's a redshirt guy, he is absolutely redshirt. He has some pass pro qualities that are pro ready, but he's still not there yet. And his run blocking, if he was just placing the NFL right now, would probably be the worst in the league. Like, his run blocking is abysmal. So I am not a Carter Warren guy. I'm sorry. It's the run blocking, and then it's also a soft mindset. So I don't think he's going to work out. I'm sorry. I'm being honest with people. I hated the film. I hated it. He has good length. He has good pop in his punches. He does a good guy. He does a good job snatch and trapping. He has some cuff techniques that I talk about. He has some good qualities in pass pro, but his run game is so bad that it almost completely dissipates anything positive in the run in the pass game. It's brutal. It's a brutal watch in the run game for him. And then past that, I just said Clark, Kyle. I don't know. You didn't watch any of that. So far, out of every single player I've done, whether it be when I'm just talking about the value placed in each player, whether it be by draft pick or by money paid in free agency, Clark, for the value we got him for, is my favorite player that they brought in. I really, really like Clark. And going back, obviously I recorded the film in March, and I went back and actually did the review. I think I did it yesterday actually, and I was very, very impressed again. And a lot of it's at linebacker. A lot of it's at strong safety. There's some free safety quality that he has. I think if he's in the middle third of a cover three, he's good in that case, because you don't have to. People think in the middle of a cover three to cover a lot of ground. Sometimes you actually don't. You actually have to cover a lot more ground in a cover two, covering half the field. He's not as good in cover two type looks, and okay, if it's cover 4 and he's against the tight end, okay, you can convince me. But I like him in the box. I like him at strong safety. I like him middle third in cover 3. But he's just very consistent, a very good tackler, very consistent with his reads, very comfortable in zone coverage, very, very comfortable like matching the 2 to the 3, the 3 to the 2. He's comfortable in traffic. You see him multiple times in that review, just have an understanding of where the sticks are. Like you hear me say a lot in the review of how easy he makes the easy stuff look, which is really important to me. There's a lot of plays where, like, let's just say it's like a standard drive concept, right? Where he's like he's the middle linebacker, whether you be playing like a true hook or a hook to curl, and you have the dig in the middle, and then you have the drag route underneath of it. And there's a lot of situations where it's like 3rd and 10, and they'll try to bait him with that drag underneath, and you'll see him recognize the drag, peek the quarterback, but he still gets that distance with that dig behind him because he knows what's going to hurt him. He knows what's going to get the first down. If they complete it in front of my face, I'll rally, I'll make a tackle, but I'm not getting up the first down. So he's like very, very consistent, a very smart player. And I think he's definitely being underrated by Jets fans. And the fact that you bring him in, he's a smart player. He was wearing like the green dot for the Ravens, communicating with the defense. That matters a lot. Like, defense it's a lot of communication, and to have him along with Mosley now, like being those communicators, I think he's a really, really underrated player, and I really, really, really enjoyed the film. So I know, you hear me talk about Carter Warren shit on, you'll hear me maybe shit on Lazard a little bit, but I am positive when I actually like a guy, and Clark is one of those guys that I legitimately like.
He's a Joe Blewett type guy. I'd like to hear that. Yeah, I only watched one of his games, and I think it might have been 2021 season. I can't remember if it was 2022 season. And the majority of that game that I watched, it's been hazy. It's been a couple months now.
Yeah, I was really hoping you watched that one.
He predominantly played safety that game. I'll watch it before the next one. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Cool.
So I want to see him in the box more, but that's pretty cool to hear because, when you talk about like communication issues and just being like, okay, so he's not a flashy player, but he's consistent down to down. It's like, when you talk about chunk plays, blown plays and stuff, like think back to those Todd Bowles defenses that we had a couple of years ago. There was so many times, and I understand that, he wasn't necessarily working with great rosters, but think about whenever Rontez Miles had to play safety. I mean, like, for as tough as the guy was, and as much as he wanted to be a good football player, I mean, the guy just didn't understand like coverages and stuff. And like, for sparingly as he played as a safety, how many big, long touchdown passes was he responsible for giving up? Like, you remember that, was it a Monday night game or a Thursday night game? I think it was a Thursday night game. The Colts absolutely destroyed the Jets on primetime TV. Montez Miles started that game. So to get a player like Clark, who, you could move him as a chess piece and you're comfortable with him in multiple roles and he can communicate properly. He's going to get dirty in the run game. I did see a couple clips that you threw on Twitter here and there a couple weeks ago where, he just kind of like gets in and like, makes a tackle or he's like contorting his body. I know what player you're talking about. I don't know if I have it in here.
I definitely do have it. I don't know if I could find it so quickly.
So yeah, that was a pretty impressive play. If you could pull it up, if not, it's all good.
Are you talking about I think this is the one you're talking about, Kyle.
Let's see. Let's see it
right here. We take on 2 guys.
Oh, wait, can you rewind it, please?
He's over the left. He's over the left tackle right now. Yeah, this might be the player talking about on Twitter that I put up.
That might be blocks. That might be it.
So no, I really like him, and I think he's very consistent in the box. I think he's very consistent as a strong safety. I think he's consistent as the middle, the middle defender in a cover 3. Now, when you start to talk about him in deeper coverage, that's where some mental lapses come up. You'll see him in cover 2, like not properly leverage over a route on his side. You'll see him stare at the quarterback a little bit longer than he should. So the farther you move him back, the less comfortable I am with him, minus like very specific roles. But I still like him a lot more than nobody's talking about Clark. Nobody. You should talk about him. People are going to be talking about him during the year. And it's so funny. It's just like you don't hear about him, but because like remember the whole Whitehead thing.
What's his age? Is he 28, 29?
Yeah, I think he's 28. So
as a safety, you could play in your later years. We're not talking about a 28-year-old running back here. Exactly. I do wonder because everyone threw that clip up of him saying that he knew his time with the Ravens was coming to an end and he wanted out of there because something like his contract or whatever. And they just
they drafted Hamilton to replace
exactly.
him.
So, it does make you wonder, like, okay, this might not be a 1-year type plan with the Jets. Like they might love the way he's playing, and then halfway through the season, re-sign him, for an extension.
It's just so funny how like certain guys don't get their credit, and it's it's the contract and it's YouTube highlights, but like you hear like last year, I'm not going to say the names of people, but plenty of big wigs on Jets Twitter were saying how consistent Whitehead was and how good of a tackler he was and how good of a player he was. So I was expecting that, Kyle, and you watched the review and I sat there, I was like, what the fuck? What is this? Like this he's not good. So it's just funny, like some guys don't get their credit, and Clark deserves a lot more credit. Other than that, really the only other things to talk about in terms of like some of the updated thoughts on film. The Izzy, have you watched a lot of Izzy?
I watched
Izzy.
I watched like 3-4 games on my own. I didn't.
Yeah, I like Izzy, but I feel like he's being a little bit overrated too. By people. Like I like the explosion, but in terms of like his tackle breaking, his creativeness, there's really not a lot there. Like he gets brought down by corners pretty often. If a guy penetrates into the backfield, he's not very creative with the ball. He doesn't have good patience. People talk about his vision. As soon as people say, "Oh, he has great vision and like great patience," I'm like, okay, so you didn't watch him, or you don't know what you're watching. So I like Izzy for his explosion, but he has a very long way to go in terms of being a down-to-down consistent running back in the NFL. And like a lot of the plays, and we'll take a look at the Virginia game. I actually believe I'm recording him tomorrow. It's great that he has the breakaway speed, but he was running through some gaps that a truck could fit through. So I like Izzy, but I would pump the brakes a little bit on him. And then past that, Kyle, I just wanted to bring up Jarek Bernard Converse, because you watched him at least a little bit.
I could tell by your facial expressions and the way that you bring this up that apparently you like him much more than
No. I did not say that. I've watched, let's see, I watched Florida State, Southern, Mississippi State, New Mexico, and I'm halfway through the Auburn game. So I've got 4.5 games of Converse. So I have a somewhat decent feel for what he is, and I still have a few more games of him at safety. And I'm not even saying that I love the player or anything like that, but you spoke with some conviction, like saying like I don't think you're going to like him. So I'm just curious, like what you thought or what you saw that you thought I wouldn't like or that you didn't like in terms of Converse.
Well, I'd have to pull up my notes to see what I wrote down about the player, but I remember when we were talking about him, I brought up several plays of him just absolutely getting cooked by several. I mean, listen, you like corners that are really solid with technique, and I don't know. Personally, I don't remember seeing that when I was watching him. Granted, are they? I'm trying to remember. Do we think that the Jets are going to play him as a safety or as a corner?
I'm like 95% sure he's going to be a free safety with some versatility.
Okay.
Which changes your outlook when you're watching him at corner, obviously.
Yeah, so I think that in the game or two that I watched, he was more so playing corner. But he wasn't good, though, if I'm being honest. I don't even remember good reps from him at safety. Oh, man, I'm trying to remember exactly what I said about him. I'm not going to pull up my notes right now just for me not getting accused of going on a tangent or whatever. But let me ask you a question then.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying you admittedly you said that you're not saying you like the player, that he's good.
Yeah.
But what about him made you think, okay, well, I see something here? Because I don't remember seeing anything that really made me say, oh, this is worth a draft pick.
Yeah. So what I have down so far in terms of like the strengths that I like, and this is not a formulated list yet, but this is some of the stuff I put in so far that I need to completely confirm. I like the size, 6'2", 200 pounds. So you like that at safety. I like the versatility, the fact that he's played corner, he's played some slot guys, he's played some tight ends, he's played safety. I think he's a pretty good tackler in the open field. I don't love his tackling form all the time, but he seems to be pretty consistent with bringing guys down in the open field. And then in terms of like him at corner, I don't think he's the best mover. His back pedal is pretty clunky. I don't think he has top end speed. I don't think he has great acceleration. I don't think he's very fluid. I don't think he's great out of his T-step or his quarter step. But with that being said, I'm considering him a safety. And with some of his quarter technique, and I have to obviously watch more. I thought he was relatively consistent in terms of staying square to guys. I thought he did a pretty good job of squeezing guys to the sideline. I think he did a pretty good job of having proper leverage versus alignments. Like, okay, if they're below the numbers, I'm going to play with a little bit heavier inside leverage. Maybe I can angle off my hips a little bit earlier than I would because I'm using the sideline as my friend. So I thought there was some good technique there from a corner aspect where I'm not necessarily saying it's going to translate to the NFL because the receivers are a lot better in the NFL. But considering that he had some solid technique playing receivers at the NFL level or at the college level, could he play a tight end with that same technique? And I thought he could. So I thought his technique was actually decent, or at least solid. But I don't think his athleticism will hold up at corner at the next level, because there was times where he had solid technique, but he just got burned because he's not the best athlete. And I think he does struggle to locate the ball, especially when he's in trail. He doesn't find it. There's a touchdown he got beat for early where the receiver's looking back for the ball very, very early on into the rep. And then, obviously with that, okay, if he's looking back for a while, what are we going to assume? The ball's in its flight path and I have to play through the hands because the ball's going to be here soon. He turns his eyes very late and then gets beat for a touchdown where he doesn't really get his hand up because he didn't locate the ball well. So there's some things that I don't like about Converse, but for a 6th round pick, I thought he had at least good enough technique where I think he could stick at safety. So, and there's a lot more for me to watch with that being said.
All right. Well, I'm certainly not here to debate you. I'm very curious to watch what you said, and you can certainly convince me that, okay, maybe give me some hope in this player. You did a little bit of that with Uzama last year. I was on the record for saying I didn't really like that signing, and yeah. I don't think he had a great year with the Jets by any stretch of the imagination. But he's a fine role player, I guess. It does, being that he's playing safety, does change the outlook a little bit, though. But from what you just said to me, it seems like he has better technique than what I saw. But you're definitely much better evaluating corners than me, or defensive back play in general. So we'll see, Joe. You're giving me some optimism about the player, but I'm
not even saying I love him. I'm not
convinced.
Considering he's a 6th round pick. Yeah, no, you shouldn't be until you watch, and I'm sure you'll watch some by yourself as well. But I wasn't, because I went into that review like expecting the worst because of what you said, and I was like, oh, okay, like this isn't so bad. I'm surprised you didn't tell me before you watched Carter Warren, like you're gonna hate this guy, because I'm a stickler for like nastiness in the run game and stuff like that, and Warren just does not have that mindset to me. He is soft as baby shit sometimes. I'm sorry. So whatever. It is what it is. So let's run to the chat a little bit and just see what some people are saying. Then we'll get to some of the stats from last year that we predicted, and we're very far off on a lot.
By the way, I have no idea if we've gotten any super chats, because I don't have the login for streaming right now.
Yeah, I gotta send that to you, my fault. Have you spoken about how fast Carl I don't know how fast he looks. He looks like he's even more jacked than last year, which is obviously awesome. And with Lawson, it's interesting because we'll talk about the top 25. We'll do that in a couple of weeks, which it's always fun. We've been doing top 25 for almost like 10 years now. It's pretty wild.
You have I haven't been doing that long.
Okay, yeah, but still at least like 6 or 7 years probably for you. But it's like interesting with Lawson because I feel like he'd be really good. But like, how far do you put him down? Because you have to assume lack of health at a certain point. So it's interesting with some guys because like Lawson could be 5 or he could be 15, and I get the argument for either one of those. But no, he looks good. And I think he'll be even better than he was last year. Kev says it's JD's MO to overlook legit QB2 and free safety. I could say at this point you're not wrong, Kev. He has overlooked quarterback too, and some vets at quarterback, and we have been struggling at free safety. Joyner wasn't enough. He was bad. Kyle hated Joyner's film, hated him, and he was right. So
you hated him too. I mean,
I did. Yeah, I did. Dude, it was that one play where he didn't give full effort in the Super Bowl. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, really? Like, you're really not going to run in the Super Bowl to chase down attack? Like, what are we doing here? So, yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan. Let's get
I mean, just in general. I was just – what do you say?
Kyle loves those big, nasty guys, the eye emoji. So
who was I talking about that I was, like, talking about a big, nasty player?
I don't know.
I know you were talking about nastiness, but I don't remember doing that tonight.
Mm-hmm. It makes me so happy to hear you guys gush over Clark equality. I didn't call him a free safety though. I'm gushing about him as a pseudo linebacker, strong safety in the box. I'm not gushing about free safety. That's a different story. If I was evaluating him as just a free safety, I would be much more lukewarm. But in terms of what I think he provides the Jets in the box as a linebacker, I'm really, really happy with him. And like you look at a certain point last year, Kyle, like the Patriots started just like flooding intermediate zones with tight ends and stuff like that, and depending on Yak, because just assuming our guys wouldn't be in the right position at the right time because Quan and Quincy aren't always proper with their reads, and Mosley slowed down a little bit. You have a guy like Clark who knows how to pass things off, who knows where to be. That's gonna dissipate this year, in my opinion. So you're not gonna be able to attack the middle of the field as much with Clark there. So I really like that. Gets released Will Parks. Yeah, devastating moves. Simple Eat, hey Joe, thoughts on McCole Hardman's role? He's currently listed as starting slot receiver I feel like it's truly possible he ends up with the second most receiving. Yeah. So Kyle, I want to go on this one. McCole Hardman, number 2 receiving yards on the team this year.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if Corey Davis misses major time this season, I guess that's a possibility. Aaron Rodgers loves Lazard, has familiarity with him. They just gave Lazard a bigger contract than they gave Hardman. So just based on that, you figure that he's going to play more than Hardman. I don't love Lazard at all, but, tell that to Aaron Rodgers, who he has familiarity with. I would bet no. But Hardman,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, he's a burner. But, I mean, as a receiver,
he's
clearly
extremely raw as a receiver. As a route runner catching the ball, he's really raw.
And he's been in the league for 4 years. So what's really the probability that he's going to grow a lot? I mean, I know it took Devontae Adams a couple years, but
if you had to bet on him being, I would bet on him having less receiving yards than Cobb before I would bet him having more receiving yards than either one of Davis or Lazard. He's very I don't know. I like him, but there's a reason he's making $5 or $6 million. A fungus among us says y'all don't know football 20-year minimum. So I don't know. I guess he's saying you have to be a football fan for at least 20 years to know football. So he knows automatically more than us, Kyle, because he is older than us. Just so you know, everybody who's older.
Is that what he meant? I wasn't very clear.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I guess that's what that means. I haven't seen that name before, so I don't know. 20 years minimum to know football. So whatever. Oh, hold on. A fungus. What do you mean? Because now he's saying click the like button. Click the thumbs up. So I just shit on you, but now I appreciate
he
you.
Could have been talking. He could have been talking to other people in the chat, Joe.
I haven't been a football fan
if that's what he
years,
even meant.
Really? I don't know. Let's see. Hey, fellers. What's up, John? Always appreciate you being in here. A fungus among us and our friends now, but I don't know why he said the 20-year minimum thing. I think people who are smart know that just because you're older doesn't mean you know more football. Clearly, listen, a fungus among us might be, let's just say, I don't know. He's older than Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan probably knows more football than a fungus among us. I'm just throwing it out there. So I take back my hate to you, a fungus among us. I appreciate you now. What do you expect from Rucker this year, Kyle? From Jet to Angel.
So the reports are that he's been kind of tearing up OTAs and stuff. Looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I really think the guy should have played more last year. I understand it was kind of hard in the situation. You just gave out two decent sized contracts to 2 tight ends. So just in that sense, it was hard to justify it. But, sometimes tight ends do take a big jump from year 1 to year 2. I don't think Kelsey really did anything his rookie year. Granted, I don't know if he was 100% healthy, although he hasn't, he's been super healthy his whole career. Gronk, although he was very good as a rookie, he took a huge jump from year 1 to year 2. So, we could see a big jump. I mean, would it be crazy to say that Rucker could be the best tight end on the roster this year? I don't think you or I would be shocked by that.
I think I can argue tight end too. I really think people are overlooking Conklin too, and what he is. And I know Conklin, listen, his first 4 years with the Vikings, he had 3 or 4 drops, 3 or 4 fumbles, and then he comes here for his first 3 weeks and he has a drop and a fumble each game, and people hate him. But Conklin is a legitimately good receiving tight end, so I think he's going to outpace some people's expectations. But I would not think it's a crazy idea to think that Rucker takes over tight end too. You could tell you can convince me he's better than Uzama. This year.
There's no doubt in my mind that you can convince
and
me
his
of that.
His role is really dependent on if they're carrying Baldwin. I think it's a situation where the Jets are going to see what they have in terms of blocking with Uzama, with Rucker, and with Conklin, and seeing if they can kind of pseudo fill that Baldwin role. If they can't, then it's going to be Baldwin, and then Rucker would play less. But I think Rucker, if he is going to play a lot this year, a lot of it's going to be as an H-back and blocking and creating some space. Now, I don't think he's the guy you should have on a Mike zone or a lead zone, kicking somebody out. But if we're talking about, a pin and pull or on a sweep or something like that, getting that positional leverage, and I'm okay with him, but I don't want him necessarily ISO or something like that. So I think it kind of depends, but yeah, I think he could be tight end too this year.
Definitely can see that.
Let's see. How does Hackett's system for it? They're obviously same base. I would say with Hackett, you have more tight end involvement. I would say that there's more. It's more deep than LaFleur's was. LaFleur did work intermediate some. Hackett's more deep and short. I would say the running back screens are a little bit different too, with the pacing they get their running backs into their screens. So every like West Coast system's going to have slight alterations and things like that, but they're not overly different. I would just say Hackett's more tight end heavy, more a little bit heavier personnel. I would say more deep shots, and then a little bit more like in terms of like screens and things like that. But I'm sure in terms of concepts, I'll get a feel for Hackett's system and what he likes to run. Like LaFleur was like, you had a lot of flood, you had a lot of sail, you had a lot of that spin concept that we talked about. Hackett's very, very, very heavy on mesh, very big mesh guy in there as well. So there's gonna be some different concepts they like to do, but in general, they're obviously very similar because they're both West Coast. But
when you're talking about like West Coast offenses, like, being really similar for the most part, got me thinking about this Frank Reich quote that I saw recently where he was saying like, a lot of passing concepts, like every team's running the same stuff, but a lot of it's, some of the key differences is like how you protect them when you're in them. That's how some offenses can differ. I'm not smart enough to be able to say how this offense could differ in terms of protection, but I definitely could say that with LaFleur's system, there was way too many miscommunications and stuff with, when to pass off stunts and things like that. And sometimes you had free rushers getting to the quarterback way too often, and which is certainly not good. And I do think, if I'm not mistaken, that there were certain players that were on record for saying that LaFleur's offense was too confusing for them. So sometimes too, it's like you're not even running like it's not like, oh well, he's running a whole bunch of different plays, but it's like, how do you teach it? How do you communicate it to the players where they can understand it? Because you might think like like the average person. I guess maybe I'm going off on a tangent again. I need to be reeled in. Sometimes people might think like, oh, football's so slow.
So Kyle, I saw some of the comments last couple of weeks, like people saying that you're allowed to go on tangents, but the thing that was funny to me, I legitimately like LOL'd, was when I do say lightning round. Like sometimes I'll say lightning round, which means like 10 to maybe 30 seconds of an answer, and it'll be like I'll say literally lightning round and remind Kyle, and he'll talk about the topic for 5 minutes. I'm like, Kyle, lightning round, let's go here, fella. But no, you're allowed to go on tangents, but lightning round means lightning round. We're still trying to grasp that concept. Everything else we're good.
I have to make a mental note about lightning round next time you say that.
It's like 30 seconds max, maybe a minute.
So what I was trying to say was that, so the average fan who doesn't really understand football, oh, why is it so slow? There's all this time in between plays and yada, yada. Well, think about all the information that's being conveyed from play to play. And, so if you're a player in the huddle and, you're getting this, like everyone's seen the clip of when John Gruden's yelling at Chris Sims, because he can't fucking get the play out.
Yep.
Some of it's like, well, how can you communicate, make the system succinct so that players understand it? Because remember, these are young kids, right? Who don't learn the same way that a 40, 50, 60-year-old man does, right? So, and Hackett seems more personable, so he might be a better teacher. Even he might not be running a whole bunch of different stuff than LaFleur was. I mean, obviously he's not. I mean, like he literally coached with LaFleur's older brother in Green Bay, but he might be a more personable and a better teacher than him too. So, those are some of the things that I think you are hoping for.
So Kyle, let's get into our stat predictions that we predicted last year. I have my note as I edited a little bit last night just to add some stuff for this year's stat predictions. I don't know exactly when we did this, but I think we did this around the same time last year in terms of predicting the 2022 stats for the Jets. So let's embarrass ourselves a little bit. It's okay. And the first stat we predicted was Zach Wilson's stats. So what were your Zach Wilson's projected stats this time last year for this season?
All right. Well, you tell me yours first, because I'm still pulling it up on my phone. I got it open on my computer, but I'm pulling it up on my phone. So you tell me what you had for him first.
And I think you might have influenced me a little bit, because like you were saying like 30 touchdowns or whatever.
No. I said that his rookie year. No. I said that his rookie year.
So I had, and this is just terrible, and I guess I bought into a lot of the the end of the year stuff, but I said 27 touchdowns, 12 picks, 3,888 yards, which is 228 per game, 67 completion percentage, and 237 rushing yards for 3 touchdowns. His actual stats were...
And you didn't do yards per attempt, right?
No, I did not. So we only had 9 games of him, but we had 6 touchdowns, 7 picks. I don't know where. Let's see the completion percentage. I don't know if it doesn't have.
You know what's so funny? Like, how many teams have a quarterback where they throw more interceptions than they do touchdowns per year? In modern NFL, like it's not common at all. And the Jets had that with Darnold one year. They had it with Zach. I think they had it with Geno one year. They had it with Sanchez. Well, definitely not Sanchez's second year, but I think his rookie year that was the case. I mean,
did you see the thing floating around about is like Jamarcus Russell's first 22 starts, the Zach Wilson's 22 starts is like almost identical, and I think he had a little bit better in terms of, or Jamarcus Russell was a little bit better in terms of touchdown interception ratio, but Zach
had a better team to work with.
Oh yeah, a lot better team. So no, he's been pretty much a historical bust. So 27 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. I was very far off when he ended up playing 9 games and got 6 touchdowns and 7 picks. So we made ourselves look like a bunch of assholes there. But it is what it is. You know, we bought in. So what were your stats, Kyle?
So Zach Wilson, I had him at 24 touchdowns, 3 less than you. I had him at 14 interceptions, 2 more than you. I did have about 400 more passing yards though, Joe. 4,215, completion percentage 63 as opposed to your 67. Mm-hmm. And rushing yards, I had 150 and 3 touchdowns. So overall, my stats were not as high as yours, but I did do yards per attempt, which you didn't do, and I had 7.4, which obviously was way higher than what do you have, like low 6?
Yeah. I don't know. So the next stat we did, Kyle, was receptions leader for 2022. Who was your projected reception leader for 2022?
Receptions leader, I had Elijah Moore at 85.
I had Elijah Moore at 78. And listen, like I still I think some people are like, oh, you're an idiot for that, whatever. But go back and watch. Like, nobody's going to do it. Nobody will do it. But go back and watch the review I put out of him in his first year. I did a review.
Yeah, like post
and
his
in
first
college.
year.
Yeah, post his first year and then his years in college. And he's a good player, man. Like I could, if I was to tell you, hey, the next 4 years,
suppose he looks really good in Browns camp, or not camp, but OTAs.
If I were to tell you, hey, Elijah Moore has 1,000 yards each in the next 4 years, you wouldn't be surprised. You're not. He's still a good player. He's just with a shitty OC who didn't use him properly. He's still a fine player. I'm not going to back. I don't like him necessarily. I especially don't like him now that he's with the Browns. I want him to fail, to be honest, not as a human, but as a player. Just so people can't rub it in our faces. But with that being said, he's still a talented player. So I projected 78 receptions for 1,037 yards, and he had 37 receptions for 446. So quite the disappointment for what we were thinking of Elijah Moore. I also had him at 9 touchdowns.
I had the same.
and he had one touchdown. So
yeah.
not ideal, Kyle. What was your yards at for Elijah Moore?
11-15.
Yeah. I think that's more coaching. I think that's more circumstance. I really do still think he's a good player. And if you had to bet, Kyle, like over under on his yards this year, let's just call it at even.
I think call it 900,000.
Yeah, 900. You taking the over? Okay.
I would take the over on 900. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, we also predicted our rushing yards leader for 2022. What'd you have there?
I had Breece Hall at 1,020.
Yeah. And unfortunately for that, I don't think we were necessarily wrong in what we were thinking Breece Hall was going to do. Unfortunately, we got 7 games instead of 16. So even if you just double
what was his actual numbers?
80 runs for 463 yards, 5.8 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns. So even if you just double that, you're talking about near 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns for him. I predicted 957 yards and 8 touchdowns just because you had Michael Carter as well. And I thought he would play better. And I actually had it in here. I don't know if you had it in there, but I predicted Carter to have 615 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. And obviously that did not happen. With Hall, it's such unfortunate because he would have been way over those numbers if he continued to play like he did. And the thing with Hall that's interesting, I have a review coming out on him. I don't want to be negative, but are fans buying a little bit too much into him being, I'm not just saying a good running back, I'm talking about a stud, like an absolute top 5, top 10 stud with only really like a 3 or 4 game sample size of him playing very well.
I'm sorry. Who are we talking about right now? We're not talking about Breece still, are we?
Breece, yeah, Breece. I'm just saying, like, is the sample is how do I want to word this? Is the excitement warranted for the small sample size that he put out there. Like, it's not like
I think so. Because he was a high draft pick. He did it all his time in college. I mean, like,
yeah,
we knew he was a stud after we didn't know shit about him prior to the draft. After watching him, okay, this guy's really good. There's a reason the Jets traded up for him. And then, his first game, did he fumble his first game? Did he have a fumble in his first game against the Ravens?
Yeah. Chuck Clark.
Chuck Clark. Yeah. But he once he kind of like what was he hitting the holes too quick or something? I'm trying to remember early season Breece Hall, what his struggles were.
There were some times. What did I say? Oh, I remember initially he would bounce runs too far to the outside.
Okay.
Took it vertical. Yeah, he took. So listen, like, I already know that I was going to get.
And let's pause for a moment. Like, think about it. Look how much wider the hashes are in college football. So like bouncing runs in college works much more often just because of that fact. So literally, like, don't knock the guy so much. I'm not gonna say you are, but I'm saying, like, you can't, like, if a guy in his first game or two is bouncing runs a little too much, it's understandable in the NFL because, like, oh shit, like, I got to get used to these hashes being where they are. So to answer your question, Joe, it is a small sample size, but I think that there's so much college tape and stuff to also go along with it to say I banking on Breece Hall being a stud, I think is a pretty safe bet. The thing that would have me a little hung up about that is he's coming off a major injury, which people do recover from, but still some people never do.
No, yeah, and I knew I was gonna get like the Joe What question. It's not. Trust me, I'm not down on Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall is a stud. It's just a general question about, is the sample size too small for the credit he's getting? That's just a question. I think he would have been the offensive rookie of the year if he continued to play, and I think he's going to be a top 10 running back. Now, how quick? We'll see. We'll see how healed up he is. I know he ran 22 miles per hour, whatever it was, but it's more about dynamic cuts, laterally than it is about running in a straight line. So we'll see where he is. Hopefully he's 100% healthy when they decide to play him. And they don't play him at freaking 85%. And he gets hurt, that would suck. Just play him when he's 100% healthy. But no, I'm excited about him. We were obviously off on Michael Carter, and we'll see what happens with Michael Carter, because I just don't know. North Carolina, he was really good. He came in his first year, was really good. So I thought year two, really good, and he looked really bad. So I'm hoping he bounces back at least somewhat, because that was just almost kind of crazy to have that happen. I think he was battling some type of injury. He had to be. So Kyle, our next stat that we and so I think the next, so we're gonna do. So we have stat prediction next time Kyle's on. We have top 25, and then we have ranking our position groups and talking about our position groups versus the AFC East, other position groups. And then I think we have a 53-man roster prediction. So we have a lot of like theme shows coming up for the rest of the season. Sacks, Kyle, who do you have as our leading sack getter for the 2022 New York Jets?
I had Carl Lawson at 8.
And it was Q at, was it 12? I think he had 12, right?
It's about 12, yeah.
Yeah. Where does it does even, how does, okay. Yeah. Like, you look up stats on Pro Football Reference and you'd assume they would have sacks, and they don't have sacks in the one I was just looking at. Yeah. He had 12.
They have tackles.
He had 12. And I predicted 10. So I was at least right with who. And I remember being like, oh yeah, we're finally getting a guy with double-digit sacks. And he even exceeded that. And I think he missed one game, right? Q, I think it was one of the games?
I think it was the game after Buffalo, right?
Was it the game after Buffalo? I don't remember.
Didn't he get, I'm pretty sure he got hurt in that Buffalo game. And after he got hurt, the Bills started moving the ball a little bit better, if I remember correctly. I'm talking about the game in Buffalo.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
It might have been that one. So Kyle, this one, I don't know who was I tried to look up just a little bit who was the leader in this. I think I actually hit it. I hit this one on the money, which was nice, because it's kind of one of the more random ones. But tackles for loss, who would you have as your guy, and what was the number?
I had Quinnen with 12.
Do you know what Quinnen his actual numbers were? Tackles
I had
for
to be
loss.
more
Is
than
there a way
that.
to find that?
I had to be more than that.
What, really? Can anybody find that? Fungus Among Us just looked it up. Jags. Yoshi says Jags game, but who can find the tackles for loss leader?
No, Quinnen played in that Jags game.
Yeah, because he got that first that strip sack, right?
Yeah.
Quinnen Williams stats. If you can find that, Kyle, that would be appreciated. I don't know how to find tackles for loss. I'm not a big stat guy. I'm sure you can go to PFF and find it right away, but I don't have a subscription. So if you can find that, that'd be great. I had Quincy Williams as the leader with 12. He had 12 on the money. And I think the other guy we were talking about was Mosley, and Mosley had, I think, only 4. So Quincy was at least the leader of the linebackers with 12, but I'm not sure how much Q had for tackles for loss. And I don't really know how to find that. So unless you can find it, Kyle, we'll move on. But
I'm looking, but I don't want to hold it up. Somebody in the chat
Really?
will get it for us. I
Yeah.
looked on PFR. I didn't see it, not at least initially.
How is that not like a
Currently
stat that you want to put out there? I don't know.
I don't know. So what was the last thing you were talking about? The last time?
Tackles. I had Mosley at 120 as the leader. I think Quincy had like 105 and he was leader. And I think Mosley had like a little bit under 100. So I was relatively close, but it was Quincy. It was Quincy. What'd you have?
I had Mosley at 152.
Holy shit. Okay. Yeah, you were like almost like 50 or 60 off on that one. But Jennifer says Q. I think there's a Detroit game as well. That's what I was thinking in the back of my head, but I don't remember now which game.
I couldn't say.
Yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, I had Mosley at 120. So this is something that I don't know if we have access to either, Kyle, because I don't really know like the DVOA or whatever it would be. But the offensive rank for 2022, what would you predict it to be? I bought into Zach Wilson. And I had us as the 13th overall offense in the NFL last year, and I believe we were probably
Joe. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't think that this was one of the things that I wrote down.
Okay. Okay. I'll move past it.
So just tell me what you have it.
No, I had 13 defense, 20. Obviously, the defense, like people are like, oh my god, 20, like you're an idiot. But we were 32nd or 31st the year before, and now we were 4. So I predicted like a 10-spot jump, which is a lot. I didn't expect almost a 30-spot jump. Fungus Mungus says 28th in offense, and then defense I was a little bit lower on, but obviously it should have been higher. Offensive rookie of the year, Kyle, I had Hall. It was obviously Garrett Wilson. I defensive rookie of the year as Sauce. Rookie of the year as Hall. Obviously that was Sauce. Offensive player of the year, Moore.
I had rookie of the year as Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, nice. I had offensive player of the year as Moore. Obviously that was Garrett Wilson as well. Defensive player of the year was Q, and MVP was Q for me, and I think that showed out.
I actually had defensive player of the year as Sauce, but I'm sure that's no surprise to you.
No, I think you're not very far. Like I'm really interested to hear your top 25. Like there's a few guys who I really, really struggled with. Laken Tomlinson was one of those guys. Like, is he going to be as bad as he was last year? Like, where is he going to fall? Kind of predictive. Is Sauce or Q going to be one? Is Garrett Wilson? Where is Aaron Rodgers fall? Is he top 3? Is he top 5? Is he not in the top 5? Like, we got some studs, and it's not necessarily.
And just so we're clear, Joe, we're not putting positional value in there when we do that.
No, I didn't put kickers and punters in there. So if you want to do that, that's up to you. But
no, you did one year with Braden Mann.
Yeah, I know. So I don't want to do all the superlatives, Kyle, because it kind of give away, because a lot of the same guys are on the team this year. So we're going to want to make it something that's kind of new. So I don't want to hit on too many of them. Did you write down any of the superlatives that you had last year?
I have the superlatives from last year.
Do you want to highlight anything? Who'd you have for most likely to finger wag a drop pass?
I had Eccles.
Really? I had Joyner. I had Joyner for that one, which I don't think he really necessarily talks shit, but maybe it's just because I didn't like Joyner. Let's
think about it. Eccles is a little bit of an animated guy, right? Everyone points out that college clip where he flops after the player like pushes him, and he's all dramatic.
Would you have for most pressure? I had a couple of guys. I had Becton on there. I had McGovern. I had Q.
Wait, which one?
This pressure? Is for most pressure going into the season. Becton had a lot of pressure, and obviously he got injured, so that's unfortunate. I think Lawson had some pressure for his contract. Obviously, he actually played relatively well. I had McGovern on there. I had Q on there. Q balled out. So, who'd you have for overrated last year, Kyle?
Overrated. Let's see. Overrated. Where is that? Overrated. What the fuck is it? Oh, I had. You don't want to hear this.
Oh no, I do.
Well, take a guess.
Garrett Wilson?
No.
It's not Sauce. Q?
Yes.
Q as overrated, the MVP of the team. Oh, Jet the Angel, I appreciate you looking this up. He said Quinnen had 12
Tell me, but listen. Tell me I was wrong though at the time when I wrote it.
For
Joe, you think Quinnen Williams lived up to the hype his first 3 years? You can't tell me you weren't
No,
disappointed with his first 3 seasons overall.
No, but I wasn't very far off of like I thought he was still very, very good. I thought he was in that top 10 range, maybe 9th, maybe 10th, whatever it might have been, but I didn't think he was, 2 or 3 like he was this year, So and yeah, when you spend a top 3 pick, you want him to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and he wasn't that. So yeah, slightly disappointing, but I don't think he was so far disappointing. But Rivka and a fungus among, I think somebody else put it in here as well. Jet the Angel, Quincy and Quinn tied for tackles for loss this year, by the way, with 12. So 2 brothers with 12. So we were both kind of right there. So we'll take that.
That's the exact number I wrote down too.
So for overrated, the 2 first names I had were Tomlinson and Uzama. I think those showed out. For underrated, I had Conklin. Didn't turn out well, but it will. That one I might stick to that one this year and say underrated again for.
I had the
Conklin.
same for that one. We also had overrated signing. Like you also wanted to divide these up into like signings and stuff like in overall. Yeah. I had overrated signing as Uzama.
Yeah, I actually didn't write that down, which is weird. I thought I would have. So I predicted 8 and 9 last year and 3rd in the AFC East. We went 7 and 10, so it wasn't so far off on that. And then I listed the Pro Bowl players as Quinnen, Moore, and Tomlinson. Q is the only Pro Bowler of those, but Q was an All-Pro player, right? It was him, and we had him,
3 All-Pros, and Mosley was a second-team All-Pro, although he probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah, no. So we'll talk about this year too, like our Pro Bowl predictions, our All-Pro predictions. Favorite offseason move last year, I had it as corner and tight end. My least favorite move of the offseason was the lack of D tackle, free safety, and offensive tackle. So I have
to write some of these down and I did write the one down. Favorite off-season sign, because I didn't have that on this list. Favorite off-seasons.
Yeah, we'll do that, and we'll do that again this year, and we'll talk about some of the all of this we're doing for last year. We'll do it again this year, which makes it a little more fun because obviously we're talking about this. And people are like, who cares about 2022? It's 2023, but off-season content. So let's see. Overrated signing had to be Whitehead per Blewett. Definitely Whitehead, definitely Tomlinson. I was not a fan of either one of those signings, and it showed out. I was really backing Conklin, and that didn't bear out too well either, but it will, right? So as fast as the media goes, Whitehead was the most overrated relative to what he actually did. He was it was just highlights. It was just that's all it was. It was just highlight film that people watch on him.
And the fact that he won a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, for sure. Which is somewhat important, but when you can't tackle, it's not necessarily good as a safety. So I don't want to get into this too much, Kyle, because I don't want to recap the entire top 25 of last year. But going back to your list of last year, is there? This is my list from this year. I don't want to do that because I'm going to give some stuff away. Is there anything about your top 25, if you're looking at your list from last year, that stands out that you really hit or that you were really off on?
Okay, let me pull up the top 25 list now. I have that in a separate place.
I know one that we both had that was really bad.
All right. One that really stands out to me, positive or negative. Are you talking about Zach Wilson being way too high?
Oh, well, yeah. Zach Wilson was 20th for me. Right above Barrios, right below Dwayne Brown. So I didn't rate him too high, but 20th is still obviously too high for where he is. He's like the 53rd best player on the roster right now if he's to make the 53. So
okay. I guess Elijah Moore being 1 is way too high.
Yeah. That's why I was looking at my list and I had him at 2, and I was like, ooh, that's going to be a rough one to talk about. So we were both really high on Elijah Moore just based on what he did at college and what he did in year 1, and obviously it didn't work out for multiple reasons, but that was one of our massive misses. I would say one of my other misses where I could see a guy is quite a bit too high for what he actually performed. I had Mosley at 4 last year, and he was much more just an average-ish, maybe solid linebacker, but not top 5 on the team. That's for sure. Some other ones that I noticed that I
where did you have Lakin?
Which was good. I had Lakin at 8. I had
him 10.
Yeah, I had him at 8, and I really do think part of that. Now I'm going to be more strict to this, going forward is like. You see the big signing, you see everybody excited about him. I didn't like the film, and I should have just stuck to my opinion because the film review, I kind of crushed him. And then just based on like his stature and what he got signed for, I think I elevated him. I think I let people influence me. I can't do that anymore. So Tomlinson should have been lower, and I think I knew that at the time.
Where did you have DJ Reed?
DJ Reed was 9.
I had him there too.
Top 10. Yeah, I would say some other ones that were bad either way. I had Fan at 12. Obviously, that didn't work out very well. Michael Carter being 15th. He didn't perform like that last year.
Where was Garrett Wilson for you?
Garrett Wilson was 17th.
Okay.
Right below Connor McGovern and right above Whitehead. So there wasn't so much bad, but there's definitely Moore being 2 was not ideal for anybody. So I'm really excited to do the list this year. Like I said, I already did it, and I'm really curious. Like, there's a few guys who I really struggled with where they should be placed. Like Becton, I would understand Kyle saying he's my 25th best player. He hasn't played in 3 years, but I could also understand Kyle saying he's my 12th best player because he's healthy, and I think he's our best or second best offensive lineman if healthy. It's just kind of what side of the argument you want to take in terms of Becton. But yeah, I'm excited to do that next year. Is there anything else about the list?
The interesting thing is we didn't have him on either of our lists last year when we did it because he had already gotten hurt by that point when we did the show. Right?
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about.
Yeah. Go look at your list. You're not gonna see.
Yeah. No.
I remember I had to take him off because I was like, I asked you beforehand. I was like, are we putting Becton on the list or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that stands out about the list. Let's see. Where was Breece Hall for you?
Oh, I have to go back to it. Breece Hall was. I think I just saw him at 12. I went past it.
I had him at 12.
You had him at 12. Did we have him at the same exact number? Let's see. He was at 11 for me. So I had him one spot higher.
Okay.
And obviously this year he performed well. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but he's probably near the top 5-ish for you. Now
and you had JFM higher than I did. Where did you have him?
5.
Okay, I had him at 11. So that was a pretty big discrepancy. But it's interesting. I just based on conversations that we've had recently, I think I'm a little higher on his previous season than you were. Maybe.
I think I don't know if so. Swolsey says Reed and Quan were such good signings. JD deserves more credit than what he gets. I think Mike's referring to Reed, Quan, and Quincy as really good signings. Yeah, no, there's good moves. There's definitely good moves. The Quincy move, the Huff move, the Reed move, the Quan move for what he got him for, the Connor McGovern move this year for $1.2 million is a really good one. So there's a lot of moves that I like. There's also overpaying for Tomlinson. There's also overpaying for Uzama. So I'm much more happy with his draft process. I think he's okay in free agency. But that's okay. Like, if you're going to be a stud at drafting and just decent to solid in free agency, then that's fine. And he's obviously a really good trader. Now, I would say some years past, like getting a 4th for Herndon and a 6th for Cashman and flipping a 7th round pick for who was that DN that we had? Who we flipped? Was that your boy? Was that Ronald Blair? He got like a 7th round pick.
No. It was
that was.
No,
I don't
but they did trade. Whoever that guy was, I'm forgetting his name. He traded him to the 49ers. I know that.
Yeah. What the hell? Yeah. Jordan. I forget. It'll come to me. So there's been some good and bad, but for the most part with Joe Douglas, like, I like his process, right? Like, I think a lot of the moves that he's done, we understand what he's thinking. But there's a few quibbles I have with him. Not bringing in solidified tight ends, and Zach Wilson's rookie year with a rookie OC was not ideal. The lack of backup quarterbacks in the past was not ideal. The lack of bringing in a true kicker in past years was not ideal, even though I did have a little bit of a conspiracy theory about that. But overall, I like we like him, right? Like, and people talk about, oh, well, Zach Wilson was I was coming back from my vacation, and there was a guy he's a Cowboys fan, and we were just talking about Joe Douglas. Like, yeah, and he's like, he missed on that Zach Wilson pick. He should be fired right there. I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to talk to this guy about football. Like, we're not going to do this shit, right now. So I think it was like 23 out of 23 GMs were interviewed, said they would have taken Zach Wilson second there. Like, most of the league, if not all of the league, would have taken Zach Wilson there. So it's not a bad net pick. Now, somebody asked us earlier, like, what did we miss on Zach Wilson? It's really, really hard with quarterbacks because you can see all you want to see on film, but you don't know what's going to happen when he has that first interception, that first hit, that first missed throw into the flat. And for Zach Wilson, I think a big part of it was he balled out in the COVID year when there was no fans and there's not necessarily the pressure from like the outside, like, or literally like right outside of you. Maybe he wasn't good at handling pressure, and we couldn't see that because of the COVID stuff. And maybe we overlooked a little bit of him sitting too clean in the pocket, and we didn't really take too hard of a look into what he did when he was under pressure. But I think a lot of what was missed with Zach Wilson was the mindset, and he just couldn't handle it.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. in terms of just raw talent, which sometimes when you watch him just struggling to make like the most basic throws, and then he's even like underthrowing certain throws, it's like, what happened? Because it's clearly not just decision making and stuff, but yeah, I think the mental stuff is the biggest thing. But I don't know. I mean, like even like it's not just like poor decisions too. It's just like lack of but then it's also like processing too. Like I didn't see such a slow processor in college. Like I'm not saying like he was super efficient with like clicking through reads and stuff, but
Much
whenever
more
you
smooth.
watch him, even in
Much
year
more
2 in
smooth.
the NFL, like everything is slow. He gets to every throw late. And by the time like he has to see it before he throws it. There's no
Yeah.
anticipation in his game in the NFL. And it's not something I saw in college. And again, does that just go down to confidence? I don't know.
I think a big part of it is because like how many times in college we were watching him and he was hitting money throws, tight sideline throws. He wasn't missing to the flat. He goes to the NFL, he can't hit the sideline throws. He can't hit to the flats. Like, how do you predict that? How do you predict one level he could hit a flat, one level he can hit a flat, next level he can't? And so I think a lot of it was the pressure of being the New York Jets quarterback, being, a young kid from Utah, having a good offensive line with a bunch of 25 and 26-year-olds not really getting pressured, and then shit hit the fan and he just couldn't respond. And that's why we saw him.
And he didn't play against the greatest competition in the world. Like, yes, there were some games he played against USC. I guess Coastal Carolina was decent or whatever. I mean, like in terms of level of competition, I know they were a pretty good team in terms of like, ranking and stuff, but I don't know if they had any NFL prospects on defense that he was playing against. Yeah, I don't know. I've questioned this for years. Like, I do think one of the reasons why I took Josh Allen a little, give all the credit in the world to Josh Allen for becoming better, because, he's someone who handled the pressure and kind of thrived under it. Some people want the pressure. Like, there's a reason why Tom Brady gets better when the pressure's on him. Joe Montana, same thing. I think for Zach, it's the opposite. And it is really hard to gauge that. When you're in a different situation, like Zach's roster, if you compare, like he had several guys who, that one receiver, he's still in the league. Dax Milne, I'm not saying he's a good player or anything, but he's like at least made a roster spot with the Commanders. There was that
are they even the Commanders anymore? Like, what is their name now? Because
they're not called the Commanders anymore.
So they were the Redskins, and then they got canceled, and then they went to the football team, and then they went to the Commanders, and now apparently somebody else has the.
Somebody bought the team. Somebody new bought the team, right?
Yeah, no. So it wasn't even that. I remember when they were trying to change their names, there was a guy who went and trademarked like the Red Wings and all the names he thought they would be, so they have to buy it from him. But I think somebody has the name rights now to the Commanders where they can't necessarily keep that name. So I think they have to change. I'm pretty sure, I'm at least 95% sure, they have to change their name again for the third time in like 4 or 5 years. So Redskins to the football team to the Commanders to whatever. I think I was looking at the Red Wings.
Kudos to that guy, man. What a smart idea.
Hey, buy it for me for a cool mill. It is what it is. But yeah, so I think that they change their names again. I don't know what they're going to be. I like the Red Hogs, the Red Wings, which I think like throws it back to some military group in the Air Force from years ago, which would be kind of cool, like an ode to history. The Commanders was never a good one. The football team was so shitty. It's just I don't know. Whatever.
I think they picked it because they play in DC, Commander in Chief. That's the only thing I could think of. I don't know. What the hell were you talking about? So we're talking about like level of competition. Like Zach Wilson, they had a pretty good roster. Obviously, they had Tyler Algier, who had a damn good rookie year with the Falcons. So Zach Wilson, his roster compared to a lot of the teams he was playing against was much better. So that's something to factor in too. But like, Josh Allen, like one thing I was kind of like, saying like it's something you got to question with his evaluations. Like he's not even playing against great competition. And it's also something like, it might take his learning curve might be a little steeper because, he's playing against like defensive backs who are, slower. They don't process as well. They don't close on balls as quickly and stuff versus like if you're playing in the SEC, you're going against guys from Bama, LSU that are going to be playing on Sundays. And it's like, I feel like the learning curve is a little bit steeper for those guys that play at smaller schools. I don't know. The Zach Wilson thing is something we'll always have to think about for years to come when evaluating quarterbacks. But You know,
Yeah,
I guess there are some people that still have hope. You know,
maybe historic.
you know, I
historic.
won't say a name, but there's like, you know, some Instagram pages that I follow, Jets fan pages, and somebody posted a picture. It's like a side by side of Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, and Zach Wilson's like looking over, kind of like trying to mimic the way that Rodgers moves and stuff. And then there's another picture where like Rodgers like it's like teaching Zach, and it's like, you know, number 8 shakes hands with number 2, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of cool, guys, but Aaron Rodgers isn't coming in here to mentor Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers is coming in here to hopefully win a Super Bowl, right?
And he can tell him all he wants,
guys,
and when the shit hits the fan,
temper
it just
your
goes back where it
expectations.
is.
Just think about that Thursday night game, Zach Wilson playing like absolute dog shit and getting benched for whatever I'm for Strevler,
yeah,
right, on national TV. Zach
The
Wilson is a
year we played
bust,
Joe
guys.
Flacco.
Don't think that in 2 years, after sitting and learning from Aaron Rodgers 2 years, Zach Wilson will all of a sudden become good and become the future of his team. It's not happening.
And it's not even 2 years, Kyle, because it's after this season we have to extend that 5th-year option. You know, so you have to make a decision on Zach Wilson
what they
next
saw
year.
with him in practice the past couple of years. Let's extend the 50. No, not happening, guys.
And that 60 that 5th-year option is what? Like, it has to be
the second overall pick. It's going to be
18, 19, $20 million.
Like that, yeah.
You know, and based on what you saw in practice, there's just absolutely no way that's going to happen. And like Swoley says here, like, you know, he can throw all the throws, make them. Oh, so we had somebody said we were told Zach Wilson could make all the throws. He can make all the throws. He has the physical capability to do it. He did it in college. He just couldn't do it at the NFL level. Like, he has plenty of
so
arm
many
talent. We know that.
ridiculous throws in college.
So many ridiculous throws, and just didn't translate. It's not he can't do it, but you know, it's 95% mental in the NFL. It really is. You have a ton of athletes out there, you know, who can make the throws. Jamarcus Russell can make the throws. It's all mental. So that first Pats game when he didn't play so well, and at first he did play well. I remember you saying like, "Oh, Zach's actually playing pretty well today," and then like 2 plays later, he throws a pick, over Ty Johnson's head.
I thought you were talking about the first Pats game of his rookie year, which was week 2, because dude, he shit the bed every time he played the Pats.
That game was fucked from the jump, Kyle, because you remember the beginning of that game. Were we sitting together that game too? I don't know if we were.
Yeah, we were.
But it was the first or second play the Pats had. Marcus May clearly strip sacks or forces a fumble on whoever it was. They blow the whistle dead. Clear fumble recovery, and the Pats still get the ball. And then I was like, nope, it's fucking done. Like we've seen this shit too many times before. So that one that hurts. That one hurt a lot. But I'm hoping to rectify all of our pain with the Pats in week 3. I'm really hoping we just go in there and beat the living shit out of them. But nonetheless,
is it in New England or at MetLife?
Week 3 is at MetLife. So I think it goes. We have Bills, we have Cowboys, we have Pats. Week 4 is I forget week 4. I think 5 is the Broncos, 6 is the Eagles. Like 4 might be the Chiefs. I think 4 is the Chiefs.
4 is Chiefs Sunday Night Football.
So 4 is Chiefs Sunday Night Football. 5 is Broncos. 6 is Eagles. And then 7's a bye, maybe 7 or 8's a bye. I think 7's a bye.
Seems like we always play the Broncos like around week 5.
Pretty early. Yeah, they just signed what's his face too, Frank Clark. And the Bills added Leonard Floyd. And like we're talking about putting rosters over the top. I'm not saying that Leonard Floyd puts the Bills roster over the top, but
he's
they're
a solid
very good
player.
team. They're a very good team, and they just added, a 10-ish sack guy to their defensive line,
who's not like a true pass rusher, but he's a guy who you can play in multiple different fronts. Very versatile. Yeah, no, he's a solid player for sure. I was surprised that he got such a low number. Truthfully.
Yeah. So let's see. Anything else in the chat? If you want to throw anything else in the chat, or Kyle, want to bring up anything? We have 10 minutes left. If we don't, we'll just end it a couple minutes short here. But Mike says their name and their hot dog stand color scheme. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. Obviously, the owner has a lot of allegations, and people don't like him. He seems like kind of a prick. I went to the stadium and watched.
But he's not the owner anymore. Well, he's not going to be the owner anymore.
Yeah, I know. I went to their stadium. That was the game that I think Sam Darnold was actually dealing a little bit. I think Ryan Griffin had a touchdown or 2 that game, but that was I got absolutely obliterated in Washington.
I remember Le'Veon Bell caught a wheel. No, he caught a seam route in that game.
Did he? I always remember the Le'Veon Bell wheel route against the Raiders.
And
yeah, I don't remember the one against
that game from Darnold. Darnold had an okay game. I think he did have one stupid interception in that game too.
Yeah,
shocker. I could be wrong about that though.
Yoshi says the Sabo switch was spot on. I'm not sure exactly what the Sabo switch was about.
I think he's talking about Zach Wilson. I think Sabo uses that term when he refers to Zach Wilson.
No. Mike says Becton, if healthy, has to start this year at left tackle. The cost or pick to replace would definitely be better spent somewhere else. It's the best for the team to see what they have.
It's best for the team to win football games when you have Aaron Rodgers on a very limited time frame.
Yeah,
and you're not going to move Dwayne Brown, who's played his whole career every single fucking snap at left tackle to right tackle.
If we were the last year's Jets and we didn't really expect to legitimately compete, then okay, I'm okay with playing Becton. But like Salah said, it's the best five, and the best five is not Dwayne Brown at right tackle. He hasn't played it like Kyle said. I think he played it in college, but he got drafted in what, like
he's 38 now,
so he hasn't played right tackle in over a decade. So Becton played it last year. He played it in college. So your best five includes Becton at right tackle. So Becton's going to play right tackle. It is what it is. Brown's not going to be an $11 million backup, and he shouldn't be a backup regardless because he's better than guys like Mitchell, in my opinion, who would start at right tackle. So Becton's going to be right tackle. I'm 99% sure. I'm 95% sure he's going to be the right tackle. Slow-mo guy says also Zach should have gotten a new QB coach. That's not John Beck. I feel like his throwing motion and how wobbly his spirals are makes his throws inaccurate, especially in bad weather games. He had a lot of lower body mechanical problems, even at BYU, and they just exemplify themselves at the NFL level. And Zach Wilson, it wasn't obviously ideal with what happened with sorry, I'm forgetting his name. The coach who passed away, he got hit by the car. Not ideal. Greg Knapp right before the season. And then they try to bring in a familiar face in John Beck, and it seemed to work at least a little bit. Like after they brought him in, he actually started playing a little bit better. But then he went to do his own thing, and he left the staff. But so part of the problem with Zach Wilson was not giving him a tight end and not getting him a backup quarterback, right off the jump, who was a legitimate veteran who would be willing to teach him. So they mishandled Zach in some ways, but people also can act. And I kind of had this conversation last week. Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson situations were 1,000% different. Like if you put Sam Darnold in Zach Wilson situation when he got drafted, maybe Sam Darnold worked out. Like Sam Darnold was put with the 32nd ranked offensive line, a terrible defense, terrible receivers, Tyler Kroft and Ryan Griffin as his tight end 1 and 2. Like he had nothing. On top of having nothing on the roster, he had Adam Gase and Mike McCagnon.
Gase comes in year 2.
Yeah, year two. But still, very, very bad. It was a completely different situation with Zach and with Sam Darnold. JMO was balling that game. I don't know what game we're talking about. JMO.
Is that a reference to Jameis Winston?
When I think of JMO, I think of Jamison Williams now. Or am I thinking of I don't know. Okay. Even if Becton could be a better left tackle than Brown at left tackle and Becton at right tackle is better than that's exactly it, Rivka. It's not, and I said that a couple of weeks ago. It's not necessarily Becton versus Brown at left tackle. It's exactly what you're saying. It's Brown at left tackle and Becton at right tackle is way better than Becton at left tackle and Mitchell, Turner, Warren at right tackle. Or there's no other names in there. So exactly, 1,000% hit the nail on the head.
And Salas keeps saying we're going to play the best 5. So
we're going to play the best 5. He also came out and he said, "Did you see that?" He said Dwayne Brown, like he doesn't feel like he's entitled to anything after Becton comes out and says, "I am a left tackle," and then your coach is saying, "Yeah, Brown, our selfless warrior, he doesn't expect anything, and it's really hard to
when
get."
Salas says something like that, do you think that that's like aimed at Becton? Like, hey,
1,000%.
Yeah,
it is. It definitely is. Saul doesn't like that shit that Becton's saying. He's like, "Go earn it." He says that in the media, and then a couple of days later, he puts out a freaking article where he's criticizing the coaching staff. He's not doing himself any favors with this coaching staff. He's going to be the right tackle. I'm sorry. And he was drafted in 2008. Thank you, Rivka. Yoshi says, I'm talking about how Zach's mind turns from Mush once he makes a mistake. Yeah, oh yeah, the dude, like, and that's what like Kyle was talking about early in that Patriots game. He looked pretty solid, but once he hits a road bump, it's game over. He can't recover. So yeah, John Benton was the offensive line coach. I think I said that name too, but yeah, Greg Knapp. I apologize for forgetting. It is what it is. Becton only has this year left to show what he can do, and the difference between him and the rest at right tackle isn't worth settling at. Yeah, I think
No,
you're
it's
thinking.
not. You don't have Aaron Rodgers for 5 years, so.
Yeah, you have Aaron Rodgers for 2 years, so we have to do our best for the next 2 years to surround him. It's not, oh, well, we'll be a little bit worse at right tackle, but we have to see what Becton is because we want him for the next 5 years. No, let's just have our best team playing while, Aaron Rodgers is under center. That's my mindset. Jamison Crowder. Yeah, Jamison Crowder did have a good game. I think, like I said, I think Ryan Griffin had 2 touchdowns that game, if I'm not mistaken. I remember it wasn't him, but it was, it was Ryan Griffin. Ryan Griffin was a guy because he was on the Bears last year, I believe. Ryan Griffin. I was telling you I ran into his dad.
Met his dad or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into his dad in a bar in Chicago because we obviously went to the Bears Commanders game that Thursday night prior to the Jets Sunday game. And he's like, yeah, he really got screwed by the Jets. He's like, he's only a backup here because he's behind a superstar tight end that they want him to develop. I'm like, oh yeah, they definitely brought Ryan Griffin in to mentor what's their tight end's name? Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet, the superstar tight end. I'm like, okay, all right, Dad. But he's it is what it is. Jamison Crowder against the then Redskins. Yeah, no, he did ball. I like Jamison Crowder. But he just battled some injuries, right? So
my favorite Jamal Adams hit came in that game. He laid the shit out of that LSU running back. I always forget his name. He's not in the league anymore because he had too many legal problems.
With the Redskins?
Yeah, so the Redskins drafted this. He was a savage type of runner. Like he barreled dudes over.
Not Morris?
No.
So not talking about Morris.
No,
right?
no. He was an early draft pick. We could look it up. Somebody will find it and put the name in the chat. Jamal Adams laid the shit out of him.
I think I know who you're talking about too, because he went off his first and second year and then just completely fizzled off, right? Like really, really quickly.
No, he didn't really play much in the NFL. I think he had an injury or something. And
I don't know how do you even Google that? Redskins are actually that was 20. That was what year was that?
Second round pick, LSU running back. It'll come up.
LSU.
Darius Geis. Darius Geis.
That's it. Yeah. Okay.
Pretty sure that's the name.
Yeah. So, Kyle, is there anything else you want to bring up for the next? Oh no, let's close it out now. We got 2 minutes left. So, I appreciate everybody being in here. I obviously know it's a dead time of the off season. We'll have plenty of more topic shows. Again, next time Kyle's on in 2 weeks, it'll be stat predictions. The show after that's top 25. So we have some more fun shows coming through that have more topic based. And then again, I'm putting out 28 total reviews this off season. 20 more to go. Pretty much every single person the Jets have brought in, you'll get at least an hour to 8-hour total review of Aaron Rodgers. So check out the film. Obviously, subscribe. We appreciate everybody for watching, and I'll be back next week, Wednesday or Thursday, with another stream. And then again, expect a show, a film show every other 2 or 3 days at this point. Kyle, any last words?
Nope. You should just watch the reviews too. Yeah.